government, Department of Finance. So we have made some improvements in the process. We've also implemented some sort of supportive redundancies. Like before, providers would drop off their invoices, and whether or not their invoices lined up would kind of be what the provider said versus the person who received them. Now we're having them submit them in hard copy as well as electronically, and that's received by multiple people. So, for instance, I can go back and check and see what a specific provider submitted.
And have you opened a line of communication with the providers, again, so that this could be addressed? Because, you know, my office was inundated with calls in respect to that. And we, you know, so have we opened that line of communication so that there'll be some level of feedback provided to the providers?
Yes, we have. I get calls from them all the time. I speak to them often.
Very well, thank you. I'll move on from there. What is the difficulty, Commissioner, in regards to filling vacancies? What is the hindrance?
So there's different levels of vacancies. So I'll let DC Rojas to speak on it specifically. So for the nurses, actually, the salary was too low. So we had 3 people that we were going to bring on board, and they turned us down because of the salary aspect of things. So, and the fiscal office as well, we had 2 accountants that didn't want to come because of the salary was low. So as far as that, considering right now, everything that we've posted, we've been doing really, all the other ones, we've been getting a good return on investment, meaning that as soon as we post them, we hire, and we're ready to go. So we've been in a better flow than we were last year.
2 minutes.
Just my one comment, and I really quick, as we continue to vet the various agencies that's coming before us, a lot of them continue to have significant vacancies, and that has a tremendous impact on our GRS system as well.
Correct.
So we really need to work collectively to be able to address that.
And for our vacancies, they're not all GBI. So the ones that we've gotten back successfully have been the ones that have been 100% federal, and I just got back 8 this morning from OMB. So anything that was a backfill, we were able to fill for GBI. Anything that was a full-on federal one, we've been doing really well once the budget was approved. The only other ones was the GBI, 100% GBI. We had issues with actually having a vacancy and funding that.
Okay, my time is running, so I really want to move in a couple questions real quick. In regards to the Herbert Gregg home, the hire of the kitchen staff, kitchen manager, as well as the 2 cooks, where are we with that?
Assistant Commissioner McCall Brown, we have a backfill for a cook position. We are also awaiting some supplemental funding to hire for the cook, but there are some specific positions that we were able to backfill, and DC Rojas could give some more specifics on that, but I think we're moving in the correct direction.
Okay. Maybe I could get the chair to have her address that in his time. Nonprofit organization, are we up to date in terms of the miscellaneous that's due to our nonprofit organizations?
We're pretty much up to date on everything that regarding the nonprofits, whether it be from the miscellaneous, the crisis intervention funds. So Ms. Kendall Toutan has been making sure that all those invoices are received timely, and we've requested the releases. So they're pretty happy. They're pretty much up to date. I believe that the 2nd quarter has definitely been paid, and then potentially the 3rd quarter has been processed.
Time.
Commissioner, you have a number of administrators, and I'm seeing that a lot of them are actually supervising people that are making more money than them. How are you addressing that particular issue?
That's a union issue. That's across government. And so, for example, if I had stayed a social worker 3, I probably would be making more from my account to that. So I think that needs to be addressed not just within human services, but across government wide. Looking at exempt versus classified, and then those positions. So it is
but
correct.
this is occurring within your shop, and it's creating a morale issue. So,
It's true.
yeah, so how are you? Are you speaking with Office of Collective Bargaining or
Yes,
whoever
we're in
to
constant
address that?
communication with OCB and negotiations as well as that concern. But it comes back to the exempt level, and then having to raise those up, because all the administrators right now, majority of them are exempt employees. And so if they're exempt employees, that they're all going to need raises in order for us to do that. So we can come that and put that in the budget to accommodate that. But there are people that have been doing service for 20 or 25 years, and with the rate increases for their negotiations for each of the contracts, like social workers, they're going to get continued increases. The exempt employees don't necessarily get accrued increases like the rest of them.
Okay, my time has been called, but there is an opportunity for you to pay out of classification or something to be able to compensate that, because that's
Correct.
a real morale issue.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Senator Francis. And commissioners, you have to slow down a little bit when you're answering. You're
Sure.
going a little too fast.
Okay.
Okay, the actuals, you have the information?
Yes, Charmaine Modeste Antoine,
Okay,
the
1 minute.
CFO.
Let us all get our pens.
The actuals through July 25th is $14,685,97
For personnel,
for personnel,
14 million.
$680,597.
Fringe,
Currently have fringe at $6,517,000 and $10.
supplies,
Apologize, my mouse. I don't have my mouse. $270,166.
other services,
18,174,242.
did you spend the 35,000 on capital projects? There was 35,000.
We will be. We have been combining capital projects on some of our federal budgets, so we will be utilizing this funding, yes.
Okay, so July 25th represents just about 10 months out of the 12-month cycle. Or 5/6 of the fiscal year. In other services, you seem that you would have more than the 1.2 million to pay vendors because you have expended 18 million, you still have the next 10 million, or is that going to be obligated? It seems like you're going to have enough within that 28 million that you can pay the outstanding vendors.
Because we have to do justification letters because of our
Contracts.
unexecuted contracts, we are in the process of doing justification letters to pay some of our residential vendors. The Medicaid program continues to be an issue. We have some adjustments that need to be brought on to the local side to ensure that we're capturing the full amount of the local match on the general fund.
Okay, so hold up 1 minute. In terms of the contracts and having to do the justification, I know that property and procurement had an issue with the continuous justifications that we have been sending in. Why are we still not there with these contracts being executed? Don't we have someone dedicated to execution of contracts?
It was not the issue of the execution of the contract, it's actually a funding issue. So in the midst of our 2021, we didn't have an executed contract. I'm not talking about all of them, I'm just talking about residential alone. So our people are there, they're in Devereaux and Texas and stuff, they're in there. So during the 2021, they did a rate increase. So because we didn't have enough money in the budget to actually do an executed contract for all of them. Because if I did an executed contract for one, then it would not be able to pay them the other ones. So for 2022, we're fully funded at the rate increase because we've included that in the budget. So we'll be able to execute all of the residential contracts come October.
But you still have to pay,
We'll still have to
you
pay
still have to
them.
pay 21 no matter what.
Correct.
So that is still an obligation.
Correct. It's still an obligation.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody is going to drill down and Senator, sorry, point of inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I did the math correctly, your actuals only total some 39.6 million, correct, Miss? I was going to call you Miss Modeste.
Yes.
Miss Antoine.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have a balance of roughly 17.3 that hasn't been spent, and we're in the fourth quarter. Are you on track to spend in a matter of 2 months $17.3 million?
We do have encumbrances that don't show up as actual expenditures.
So what's your amount for your encumbrances?
What I'm looking at right here is the 1.9 million.
That's your encumbrances right now? That's a drop in the bucket
That's
from your
nothing.
17.3 million. You understand what I'm asking?
I do understand what you're asking. We, 42 million was released for 42 as of July. As of July of the 57 million, the 42 million was released. And we have utilized 39 million of that. We have 1.9 in encumbrances. We are in the process of requesting justification letters to execute for the funding that was, the allotments that were released. We track it by the allotments that are released.
Because the concern this body has is that you came back with a massive budget increase. You're asking for an appropriation that's some $20+ million than last year. But as of the end of the third quarter, we're in the fourth quarter now, you have a balance of 17.3 million, which are 1.9 in encumbrances, and you're claiming that you may not be able to meet vendor payments, but when you look at the numbers,
Correct.
the numbers depict a very different picture from what you're testifying on. Mr. Chad, if you notice that, and the vice chair as well, the actuals, 39.6 million, they have a 17.3 million balance, encumbrances of 1.9 million, and they're asking for 20 million plus increase. The math doesn't add up in a sense, but thank you, Mr. Chair, for the point of inquiry.
So I need to clarify that for you guys.
I can pull that analysis together for you, but we are on track for spending the funds.
So you're saying you're on track to spend the entire 57?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me go back to the cook position so I could just get some clarification. Because I know you spoke about the cook, but I still didn't get the position as to whether or not the cook is being hired or the cooks for Herbert Grigg. Are they in process of being hired?
Assistant Commissioner
Deputy
McElroy
Commissioner.
Brown, there is a backfill position, which one,
That means yes or no?
yes, but I also mentioned we did request a supplemental budget for critical hires. The kitchen staff is among them, Senator, for Herbert Grigg and Queen Louise Home.
The other aspect to help with Herbert Grigg, we actually took one of our cooks from YRC and placed them at Herbert Grigg as well to help with that deficit.
From where? From
From Youth Rehabilitation
Youth?
Center, because our census is actually very low there. So we had more of an abundance in our nutrition staff there.
So we have a NOPA that's going through for a cook at Herbert Grigg. We have somebody in the pipeline, a NOPA that has been sent for approval.
I would yield to DC Rojas to specifically address that.
Deputy Commissioner Rojas, Rhoda Rojas, the cook position was posted and it expired, and it is in process of reviewing all of the eligible applicants. So there's not a NOPA right now because it's at the early stage of the process, Senator Viola.
Okay, but how is it at early stage? I know cooks were interviewed from last year for that particular position. Why are we still at the early stage for this $29,000 position? It seemed like rank and file.
Because
We always have issues getting rank and file that is so necessary on board. There's a long list of individuals that interviewed for cook position. I know that Human Services interviewed individuals. You're going to re-interview again?
Senator Viola, Deputy Commissioner Rojas again, last year all of our vacancies were cut. So there, even if cooks were interviewed, there were no vacancies to put them in
But
because
the-
all of those
okay.
general fund vacancies were cut.
Okay, let me start back. I understand what you're saying with that. However, the projections that we projected last, we met. Money to fill these positions. The executive branch decided to cut positions, so they cut that particular position. But you had interviews. You had cooks that you interviewed position. So you had a process where you could have selected somebody. If you now have the monies, why can't you go back to the interviews that were conducted last year and see if those individuals are not interested in a position?
So this is Deputy Commissioner Rojas, because this is a classified position, it has to, and this is a position for someone who resigned, it has to be posted, and then those individuals have to apply to create an eligibility list for us to interview. Granted, some of those individuals who may have interviewed previously are on that list, then we have to review that list first from Division of Personnel, and that is where we are right now. We can't just pull those individuals. We still have to get the list from Division of Personnel that tells us these are the eligible applicants who applied for that position.
So what
This is
your-
not the same position that we had previously.
What is your timeline to get a new cook on board or cooks on board?
Given that we've gotten the list today, because I just confirmed with the generalist that we got the list today, from now, I would say it would take us a good week to go through resumes, do interviews, and then select a candidate. So I would say between 1 to 2 weeks to actually get through the interview process and then make an offer and then bring that person on.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, let's
not
try-
1 to 2 weeks to do all of that. Sorry,
Okay.
it's not that quick.
Okay, let's try to make it a priority because we're burning out the cooks that are there at Turbot Creek right now. They're really to the point of burnt out, and they're taking,
It's a true statement.
providing food for our elderly population and others. We really got to get this problem. It's been a long time, you know. I know they're frustrated. Senator Sarro.
Thank you. I'm not accustomed to being so high on the list. Commissioner, you don't see a problem with what's happening in human resources? The
With
length
only-
of time we're moving to hire people, we don't see an issue?
So,
And let me tell you, I had a discussion with the president this morning on the way here. Government is to move in real time. If a pandemic hits, when the pandemic hit, the U.S. Congress, whatever vacation they were on, whatever they were doing, they had to gather in the halls of Congress to draft a legislation that gave aid to the territories and the states in a timely fashion. In political science, you are taught that government moves in real time. So to sit here and say, we have a position here, we have them here, we interview them last year, we have to post this. We don't see a problem with the lack of urgency as the Department of Human Services services some of the indigent population in this territory that needs help. We don't see a problem with that. And I have to be a little antsy today and frustrated because look at the officer intake. You think I should be calling you to tell you the officer intake ain't answering their phone and somebody need to call me? I should not be the operator to tell you that a child is in distress. And if I didn't know you, senators are answering the phone over and over and over again to say, Commissioner, I need help. That defeats the purpose of why you were established. That's my rant for today, because I'm really serious about what is happening, and we're not moving in real time. And, you know, you may disagree, but you and I talk quite often, and this can't work. So let's go. Tell me, the status of overtime. What do you in overtime, CFO?
we got extensive amounts in overtime.
Repeat your question, I'm sorry.
What do you owe in overtime? You have employees in maintenance that worked since the storms.
You mean
that are
acting pay?
Not acting pay. I didn't get to acting
Outstanding
yet.
pay? Outstanding pay?
Yes.
Okay.
What is the total amount of outstanding pay?
I don't know if DC Rojas
Oh,
has
that's
the
Ms.
table.
Rojas. Ms. Rojas, what's the amount in outstanding pay? Overtime. But the category is outstanding pay, so.
It-
Ms.
we
Rojas?
Overtime should not necessarily be outstanding
It's not outstanding.
Okay, well. in
unless
your-
it happened prior
So
to
tell me,
us.
well, however you have it categorized, you have a lot of people. I know maintenance was one from the storms. We owe people money.
So,
That
okay,
is outstanding pay.
Ms. Rojas, tell me the numbers, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Sarro, Deputy Commissioner Rojas. In regards to outstanding monies owed to individuals across different groups, that total is, hold on one second, sorry. It's about $170,000. In total, that combined with acting pay is approximately $400,000.
So you know, Madam President, they sit and say, we having a $170,000 discussion.
We're processing those.
We're doing that now.
Pay, by
We're
the
doing
end of
it.
the fiscal year,
doing
pay every single employee
Amen.
what they are owed. They worked, pay them, and pay the acting positions at $400K, pay them as well. So let's go to acting. When do we plan?
Combined.
When do we plan to have these people, they're getting Oscar Awards at this point, Academy Awards, Emmy Awards. When are we going to solidify these people's positions?
So by the end of the fiscal year, everybody will be paid between the acting and the monies owed, past monies owed. There's a couple of people that are currently in acting positions that those positions that they need to move into are not available. So that's not a vacancy. I believe that's 2 positions. DC Rojas, I'm looking at you.
So Ms. Ross, what are we doing to rectify this? Because if they're acting in a position, clearly the position is necessary, correct? No?
It's necessary. However, the position for them to go into may not be available for them to go into. Does that make sense?
Yes. Ms. Rojas, what's your plan? What's your plan to stop all these acting positions?
Thank you, Senator Sir, for the question. Deputy Commissioner Rojas, the individuals that we have who are continuing to act, there are vacancies that we have on our FY22 personnel listing that will allow for them to move into those positions. And we have also requested a supplemental budget to fund other positions that we have. Right now, there are 10 individuals that are in, that will continue to be in acting positions because we do not have the vacancies. And there are 7 who have moved this year into the positions that they were acting in.
What's the longest, give me the time frame of the longest acting employee.
The longest acting person who actually has a out-of-class compensation on their pay, but they are still continuing to act, I believe is 11 years.
So we have people acting for 11 years.
I've only been here for 2, so I'm working on it.
No,
so
no, no.
thank
I
you.
understand, but
Okay.
I just come on a scene as a 35-year-old millennial, and I have a GRS system to save, right? So, hold on, Commissioner. So, when you take the job, it comes with the responsibilities. I don't have the luxury of telling the people of the Virgin Islands.
We're gonna make the people
Hold
whole
on.
by the end of
But
fiscal
I don't
year,
have the
though.
luxury of saying that I just come here, so GRS isn't my responsibility. GRS
I'm
started
not saying
failing
it's
in
not my
19 Hold
responsibility.
on, Commissioner.
Okay.
The system started to fail in 1993. I was in 3rd grade. And I can't tell people that the system can be fixed. Okay? So you have the responsibility.
Agreed.
Stop. We have to limit the acting positions, pay your overtime, and pay the acting salaries.
I'm in
Now,
full
2 minutes. Tell me about
full
MAP.
agreement.
MAP, we were instrumental in the budget markup of giving you the 407. Did you expend
Yes.
the full 407, Ms. CFO? Because the testimony says one thing and it can allude to the, that you.
We were successful in posting the positions and interviewing.
Yes.
But we haven't recognized the actual expenditures yet because we're just onboarding the staff.
And could I just, Senator Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner, because of the 407,000, we will be able to transfer the temporary to permanent, and we have back pay going back to October that will be paid out to them, and then we'll be using monies that way. And we're hiring individuals right now to fill those 32 positions.
Okay, but say your name for the stenographer, please, before you speak.
Mikal Reimer, Assistant Commissioner with oversight of Medicaid.
Okay, so your testimony says you're finally able to transfer the 9 temporary employees Medicaid.
Yes. So,
When did that happen? Happening now.
okay, they were transitioned and their begin date is August 2nd, but their NOPAs, and Ms. Rojas could go into detail on that.
Okay, because your testimony, I need the truth. I don't need you to tell me
That's
that they
fine.
have been transferred when they haven't really been transferred yet. So Ms. Rojas, their start date is August 2nd?
Deputy Commissioner Rojas, yes, Senator Saru, their start date right now is August 2nd.
Okay, I'm going to follow up on this MAP situation. Let's go quickly to the Queen Louise Home and all senior centers. Have we outfitted them
Outfitted meaning what?
COVID. We had a discussion in the disaster recovery hearing.
So outfitted them, meaning that I'm not going to open the senior center as it is right now.
No, hold
Oh,
on. I
okay.
didn't say open. Remember,
Okay.
we had a discussion about using CARES Act funding
To
to
outfit.
make it a COVID-safe environment because Queen Louise is just open. I used the word barn. It probably was inappropriate, but
It's congregate
it
living.
looks, it really, it needs to be, we just need to move it and build a new senior center. But in the meantime, have we retrofitted the Queen Louise home because we have the Delta variant? You have
Agreed.
nurses that work not one job, but those nurses are coming
Agreed.
from one job to another job to your senior center. Were you able to ask for or request for the COVID funds to retrofit our senior centers to be a safe
So
environment?
there's two different things. A senior center is what our social rec, our homes for the age is what you're referring
Okay.
to. So I just want
Well,
to make
let's
sure
say
that we're
Queen
on the
Louise.
same.
Okay.
Could
Okay,
I-
so.
You know what I
That's-
meant.
yeah.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Assistant Commissioner. Go ahead.
Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner with Oversight. So our COVID funding, we are not using COVID funding for the senior centers. There's sufficient monies in our senior center revolving fund. So they will have the washing stations, we'll have.
Okay, has it been done?
It
Yes
is
or no?
being, at the Strive Center, we are almost 100% completed.
Has the Queen Louise Center been done with the yes or no, Commissioner?
But Senator Saru, you're calling something that it's two different things. Queen Louise Home is not a senior center, so I'm
Okay,
just trying
any
to give
place
you.
that has a population that's vulnerable. So, because I don't want to play semantics, with your indulgence, Mr. Chair. I don't want to play semantics insofar as a senior center, a rec center. They all have senior citizens in them, right? That's vulnerable.
Let's call them the homes for the aged, Senator.
Okay,
Can
whatever
we?
you want to call them, have you used the revolving fund to retrofit them in a safe manner?
As far as Queen
Yes,
Louise
sir.
Home, they still remain as a congregate site in a ward setting. The home for the aged on St. Croix has rooms, and they are separated. As you said, we need to move to the new facility. And that's what we're going to do with our federal funding, building the new skilled nursing facility for Queen Louise Home.
You know that the chair, your mic okay
Mayor.
now?
Yes, I'm good.
Mayor.
Mr. Chair, I guess you could follow up because
Yes.
we all have senior people in our lives and that response is insufficient. Thank you for the
So
time,
we
Mr.
actually
Chair.
have partitions. They're not rooms, but we have partitions in between. So which is what you're asking about Queen Louise specifically. So partitions in between, yes.
Okay.
Okay, a question that I have, well, I have a number of questions, but a healthcare professional just sent me and Senator Francis an email. And the healthcare professional takes care of elderly individuals and was concerned because of lack of vaccination of those individuals who are taking care of the elderly population.
Yes. I'm also
And
concerned.
I read the entire email, and the person was a bit concerned because they were saying that they don't want to be responsible for carrying the variant or COVID into the home of the elderly, but they're targeted with taking care of the elderly. And you have the exact same situation because we have
they're-
individuals who work at Queen Louise, work at Herbert Grigg, home care, etc.
And choosing not
are
to be vaccinated?
Yes, and choose not to be vaccinated. How can we ensure that those individuals are not going to be a carrier when they're going to the home?
I can't guarantee that
Can't.
they won't be, to be honest. I can't guarantee that. I can only hope they use their PPEs and do everything, universal precautions plus the COVID.
No, but I really put it out there, not for you to give
Yeah,
an answer. I put
agreed.
it out there
You and I are on the
because
same page.
I am now seriously concerned because there is, I mean, the freedom of choice, but you know, you're taking care of a 90-something-year-old person that has been surviving all this time, and then somebody that refuses to get vaccinated carry that variant into that particular home. And I've seen these individuals, one 105 years old in St. Thomas and next age, you know, they had to contact that from some place. So as we move on, it's a difficult decisions for the Virgin Islands in terms of how we're going to take care of our elderly population. You know, and that is why I don't want anybody taking care of my 92-year-old dad, because although he's vaccinated, I want to make sure that whoever is taking care of him,
Is vaccinated.
yes. So
There are some states, if
that are
if
moving
you're-
in that direction.
that are moving in the direction of if you're a frontline worker, that you are mandated to get
'Cause
vaccinated.
You have Meals on Wheels, right?
Correct.
You have individuals going to these elderly population every single day to drop off food, every day.
We are now dropping at the door, so there's no interaction per se, meaning that they're not coming in close contact, and we did it on purpose to ensure that. We've had a COVID experience in almost every one of our divisions, where we've
Correct.
had to shut down, whether it be Head Start, YRC, Queen Louise, we've had it every single one. And so what people are doing outside and then bringing it to their coworkers. So for me, I've instilled that you have to do your social distancing, you're masking up, and you're making sure that you're doing everything possible to keep yourself safe, as well as our clients and our other staff as well. But there are some that are moving towards that mandation of
Okay, and
vaccination.
that conversation was just for everybody to think about.
Yeah.
Out there in the community, for everybody to just have a serious reflection in terms of our elderly population, where the Virgin Islands is now, where we can be in a couple of weeks if we don't control what is now the Delta variant. We have seen over 22 deaths in the British Virgin Islands in the last 21 days, and 1,800 cases in the last 21 days. We're doing okay now, but numbers are increasing. So we still have to be very cautious, and we still need to try to get as much individuals vaccinated as possible. The governor came on Saturday, and he said that schools are in jeopardy if we don't get the numbers under control. So we're talking about a lot of different economic impact and activity on this island if we can resume to some type of normalcy because of herd immunity. And I have been telling everyone there's only two ways to get herd immunity: vaccinations or you get it. And if you get COVID now with the Delta variant, many individuals are dying from that or getting seriously ill. So I don't think you want to risk that. Before I go to the next senator, the restroom facility at the Richmond facility, we funded money for a restroom, we funded money for a wheelchair accessible fan. Has that been completed?
Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner, the wheelchair van has been,
It's here?
it is here, it's
Good.
being wrapped. I think it's due to be released to us on Thursday, but the ADA van is bought, as well as the Queen Louise. And the Richmond bathrooms are being worked on by our Nuva Construction, and that should be, we're hoping to be finished by the end of September.
Okay, thank you. Senator Carrion. And Senator DeGraff is also here, and Senator James. I haven't identified them yet, so committee members are here. Okay, and don't forget, please state your name. Ms. Modest, remember your name. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I think it's still morning. Good morning to my colleagues, and good morning to the testifiers. Commissioner, I must commend you and your team for providing such a detailed appendix. I really appreciate how you have everything so detailed and categorized. So that's good. I really wanted to continue on the line that the chair mentioned in regards to the Richmond Senior Center. A little status update of where they are. I know I took my dad to get his photo ID there, and the staff was very pleasant, and the protocol was right in place, but I realized issues with the bathroom. Is that still the status? I mean, are we operating without bathrooms in there?
No, we're not. Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. We have not returned to senior centers on any of the islands, and frankly, we are not going to do so right now because of the surging numbers. So the Richmond bathroom itself, before the senior center participants return, that will be fully renovated, all new equipment, total ADA, that will be done.
But currently, the facility is being used for senior photo ID, so you have clients that come in to get that type of service. So
Correct. But with the seniors who
So
come
what bathroom do they use?
there are bathrooms, but however, the bathrooms, we are trying to retrofit them in preparation for the seniors returning. Remember, they'll be there all day, so it needs to have more than one available. We need to have the full complement.
Okay, well, I hope that's finished soon. Now, how is your financial department? Is it efficient as it should be, Commissioner? Do you feel confident? Or where are you in regards to automating and digitalizing the system to improve the efficiency of that department?
Great question. We're severely short-staffed for the budget and the amount of programs we have in our fiscal office. And so for us to be efficient operations, we have to staff up and we have to be able to have that. So recently, you have, for example, we have an accountant that's just for Head Start. So she's not able to work on any other program except for Head Start because that's a federal mandate if you're paid 100% federally funded. So for us, we're extremely short-staffed. And so if we need a grants management, we need an audit, because audit, the 18 and 19 audits were a lot of work. They asked for a lot of questions. And so for us, we're severely staff shortage in that area. If we had more staff, we would do
So
better.
those positions are included in the FY22 budget?
There's a few that are in that, not fully.
Not fully, what does that mean?
Meaning that there's a few positions. We have a backfill position that we're doing, and 2 accountant positions that are currently in there. We're also added another accountant on 100% Medicaid. So we're doing some creative ways with not
Okay.
just the GVI, but we're putting them on some other federal budgets.
Okay, some federal grants. Okay, that's good. That's what we want the commissioners and directors to do, to find creative ways to, be able to share out the funds and remove the burden, if we can, from our general funds to federal dollars that are available. So that's a good thing. Now, I'm a little bit confused still. I know we've been talking a lot about vacant positions,
Okay.
but I'm still kind of confused because I've been hearing different numbers being thrown out there. What is the number exactly?
So I'm going to allow DC Rojas, but basically, as far as I understand it, there were 78 total vacancies. And of the 78, 10 are currently posted. However, that includes just this morning at 8 something, I got an additional 8 that will be included in that 78. And those 68, say the 10 posted and 68 are in different phases, meaning that we might have just got a budget currently. The ones I just got from this morning, the vocational rehab was 100% federally funded. I just got that. That's been sitting there for 5 weeks at OMB. So for me, we're getting them, and they're all in different phases. And so if you get a grant award for a federal program, it may be from October 1, but the actual grant award we might not get until February, March, or April of the following year. So therefore, I can't put a budget online until I actually get the grant award from the federal government.
I hear you. Ms. Rojas, do you have anything to add to that? Quickly.
Deputy Commissioner Rojas, no, she answered it for me.
Okay. So
Thank you.
it's 78 positions that we have vacant. Because I heard
Correct.
like 100, 120 thrown out. There's something from Head Start also.
So we have some that are listed in our testimony on page beginning, well, actually, it's on page 27 of the appendices. The critical hires are not funded in the 2022 budget.
So critical hires are not funded.
So we had some critical hires that were included in the 2022 budget, and then we have a list that we still need in order for us to be a full workforce that are not included in the 2022 budget. I didn't ask for more money.
Okay. So what do you plan to do then for that other need that you have that we're
Either
not
come
including?
back later and let you know that I'm still in dire need. But for right now, some positions have been included into the 2022 budget, and we're very thankful for that.
Okay. Your Meals on Wheels program. How often are we delivering those meals?
McCall Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. The Meals on Wheels are delivered to the majority of our seniors Monday through Friday. And
So it's a everyday.
yes,
It's a program that services every day.
correct. And then for those elderly frail who have no other option, we do 7 days per week. With the COVID, We've increased to several more seats, over 1,000. Many of them are able-bodied, but to help them to stop going out as much for shopping, we do them 5 days per week.
2 minutes.
Okay, I know someone's in the program and they're only receiving it, I think, twice or 3 times a week. Why some seniors are not? Because if it's supposed to be a daily thing, but some people are receiving it, what's the reason for that?
For example, there are some seniors who may live at extreme ends of the island, and because of our shortage of staff, they may get it 3 days a week, where they'll get a second meal to be refrigerated or frozen, and then we go back the other days of the week. But most of the seniors get it 5 days a week. There have been times when there have been COVID scares among staff that we've had to alter that schedule, but we've returned pretty much to 5 days per week.
Okay, yeah, because if it's 5 days and then you have seniors that have in between days that are not receiving those meals, then that's concerning. Now, also within your professional services, I see you have a few contracts here that are expiring. I mean, I'm not going to go over all of them, but there's one in particular also that calls my attention, which is the SmartNet LLC for approximately $700,000. What do you plan to do with that, Commissioner? That's in the post-audit report. And I'm seeing here hosted infrastructure and cloud support utilizing the Microsoft cloud. And I'm under...
We're drafting that contract currently.
You're drafting.
Correct.
I understand that through BIT, we have a general master contract with Microsoft to provide services to all departments and agencies. How is that different from this contract that you have prepared for approximately $700,000?
I believe it's going to be incorporated and blended. But I have our administrator for MIS, Ms. Josina Ballypool, if you'd like a little additional information
Yes,
on
please,
that.
because we're trying to avoid overlapping.
Time.
Josina? Do you mind?
Yes, good morning. Justina Ballypool, Systems Manager. The contract you're referring to is the hosting for the Vibe system. Currently, BIT do not provide hosting for cloud services. So that contract is for the Vibe system. For clarification. You referred to BIT, their Microsoft service. Their Microsoft service is 365. That's Microsoft Office. So currently they do not provide cloud services, but they are looking into that. So that's something we are considering once BIT brings that on board.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. Mr. Chair, thank you for the time. I don't want to. Boy.
Thank you, Senator Carrion. In last year's budget, I'm counting the vacant positions. I'm seeing 41 that we funded on one page, a new position of a health aide. And then I think I had like 5 more. But in those, 2 more. So that's 44 position, and then we gave an additional $408,000 under MAP to hire additional workers for MAP. I'm looking at COM nutrition aid. What's the COM? Community?
Yes, community nutrition.
Okay, we
aid.
funded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Were those positions filled, Ms. Rojas? 7 community nutrition aid. That should be the Meals on Wheels.
One second, Deputy Commissioner Rojas, can you give me 1 second to confirm, Senator Wheeler?
You okay?
Thank you.
So we funded there some $1.4 million in positions, and then the next 408. Now 1.8 there, and then we did the next 408. So we included like over $2.2 million in new positions for this fiscal year. And you're saying that, I know you had a chart where you said how much you were able to hire now, how much new positions were you able to hire? You had it in your testimony.
We hired 44 this year.
Those
New
are 44 new or some transfers?
Those are the new positions, Senator. And then we had internal transfers or promotions were 25. So we onboarded 44 new hires, and then those that were transferred or within units and or internally promoted, which is what I really love, because then there's movement in the department.
Okay.
Which then allows for a backfill position. So if somebody moves up, then their position becomes available, and then we can hire. But what happens is because it's internal, it doesn't.
You gotta
look-
wait until
it
the
doesn't
person
look like
move.
we hired anything or did anything if the 25 continue to move on, if that makes sense.
Okay. And just to be clear, you said those in acting positions, they're going to be made whole by September.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with the exception of 2.
Yes.
Correct?
No.
no, I think
Deputy
for
Commissioner Rojas, I don't recall saying anything about 2 people not getting their payments.
No,
So I apologize if that was stated. That's not the case. I am meeting with OMB tomorrow to go through the 36 PRFs that we have submitted, and we have 13 that are pending, because some PRFs are more than are for one person, but 3 different timeframes. So there's nobody that I have on my list for either acting pay or additional monies due that will not be paid by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, Commissioner,
And in
you
regards to
had
the-
referred to 2 positions that you said somebody was in that position.
No, they'll get their pay for acting. However, we're still waiting on the position for them
Okay,
to
so
get
they're going to
the
be
vacant
paid for
position.
acting.
They'll be paid for acting,
Okay, but they will still be acting.
potentially.
Okay,
Yes,
but
until we get the
but the
position.
other individuals will no longer be acting, they will be in the position.
We're moving our best. If the position's available, then we post it accordingly, and they're obviously able to apply to be in that position.
No, that's a different story. No,
That's a
no.
different
Ms.
story, yes,
Rojas, those individuals that are acting,
So those are,
how many of them are going to receive a NOPA that states they are no longer acting? If they're still in the acting position presently, and they've been in the acting position for 3-4 years,
Are
how
10.
many of them are going to receive a NOPA for the position that they're in?
well, if it's a district manager position, it's classified, they'll have to apply for it. So I can't
Okay,
legally say they can just move into the position. If it's an exempt position in an acting capacity, then I'm a little bit more liberty.
okay, but
But as a classified, it has to be posted and duly noted, like under the union regulations are. So I can't guarantee that because you're in acting capacity and you're moving into a classified position, I can't guarantee you that you will have that job. Does that make sense?
it makes sense or doesn't make sense?
Well,
It
I mean, you
makes
still have
sense.
to go through the
It makes
process.
sense
You still
because
have
that's
to go through the process of applying for the position.
okay. One minute.
Okay.
It makes sense because that is a process.
Correct.
It doesn't make sense because they've been acting for years.
Agreed.
So we need a solution. If somebody been acting for 5 years, 4 years, and now you come and you tell me, oh, I'm going to open up interviews and there's a possibility that I'm not going to give you the position. Thank you for acting for 4 years, but
Right.
too bad, we don't need you now. I would be like, why was I acting for such a long period of time? So
Correct.
what is the game plan in terms of the acting employees have been there for years?
Yes.
In terms of making them whole. Okay, you got to list it, we know that. But how are we going to fast track this process to make those individuals whole? If the person wasn't doing a good job in the acting position, then they need a letter stating you weren't doing a good
Correct.
job, we're going to hire somebody else. But what is the position?
If there is a way for us to do a waiver or something with personnel, then we can request that, which we've done it in the past for not necessarily moving into the position, but we're doing that aspect. So if there's a way to do it and they're doing well in the acting capacity, for me, you've been acting for 5 years, you've done a great job, there's no reason for you not to be in the position or assume the position and role. If you've not done such a good job, you shouldn't be acting.
I know you would have. Point of inquiry, Senator Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for my own edification and understanding, these positions that these individuals are acting in, are those actual positions on the books?
The positions that they're currently acting in,
Yeah, so are they actual positions
there's
on the books?
some that are not. there's no, for example, the district manager position.
So you see the issue, right?
I see the issue.
Can you act in a position that's not in your
It might have been
budget?
a vacancy that was taken away, which is what we talked about in 2020. So it was an unfunded vacancy. So then here we are, we have somebody that was in acting
You all
capacity.
are engaging in unfair labor practices. You are. Y'all are lucky that these employees didn't take eye to where you need to go. It's unfair. If there's a position if the position is not available, they should not be acting in it.
Correct.
Then, and you've had enough time. This body has moved significant funding to support critical vacancies. If a district manager position is a critical vacancy, send it on to OMB. Have you all sent them down to?
Yes.
That's I can't hear.
Yes.
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 This is I
Because
told
it's a
her this
critical,
already,
it's
you know.
a critical hire because the other aspect of it is,
What we are doing to these government employees is a disservice. We can't keep doing this to people.
but I'll
This is
allow
our
DC
own
Rojas
people.
to
And it's not
answer.
your agency alone.
Agreed.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the time. This is very frustrating when you come and you hear this. I mean, we need to ask ourselves, what if this was me? Would that be okay? The answer is no.
As far as just going back to what Senator Boulay was saying regarding the acting capacity and the union aspect, the classified positions, they have to apply
Cannot
for the
act-
position.
Commissioner, you can't act for 5 years. I'm sure there's laws on the books. I just didn't have time to look at it because I didn't bring my computer today.
I don't.
Okay, there are laws on the books to prevent that kind of thing. You can't have somebody acting for 5 years. That is an unfair labor practice.
Okay.
And it needs to stop. Thank you,
Then
Mr.
Anybody
Chair.
that's in an acting capacity.
At some point, all of the positions were there. Some of them might have been zero funded and taken out after, but at some point, when they were appointed to that acting position, the position existed. And then there was a wait whether or not the person was retiring, and you had to wait for the NOPE, et cetera, and they continued to act. But I think that they're listening, you know, and they want us to come up with a concise answer. And that's why I think it's so important for us to be able to say that we have the one part. The first part is they'll be paid
Yes.
before the end of this fiscal year by September. But now the second part is how are you going to develop a mechanism for those individuals that have been acting and have been doing a good job and doing the job for them to remain in that position. And that's the only fair thing because they've been doing it for a couple of years. If they weren't doing a good job, that is something else. So my point of inquiry, Senator Francis. Senator Francis, Mike, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think that this conversation is really critical. You know, as a commissioner, I've indicated, as commissioner, it's my privilege and honor to lead a team of people that show up every day to fulfill our mandates and continue and contribute to our skills, to our respective position. There's a level of frustration because, you know, we get the texts coming in and their conversation. Employees are frustrated. We're talking about individuals that's very compassionate and continue to go out there and do their jobs. But we have to compensate them. We have to remove the barriers. You know, when we get in these cabinet meetings, we have to have discussion with our counterparts. You know, OMB, Office of Collective Bargaining, delete and create, whatever it takes. You know, if someone is acting in a position for 90 days, the law requires that they should be considered for those positions. And if not, then they should not be acting. But, you know, if you don't address this issue, we'll continue to see morale issue. All right? So please, whatever I could do for to bring the team together, I'm willing to do that as well. But something needs to happen because our government employees are very, very frustrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. So I think the recommendation there is that we need a meeting with Office of Management and Budget and Collective Bargaining. You guys need to sit down in the same room, and we need to come up with a mechanism to solve this problem. It's going to be a tremendous morale booster to your staff.
We have, in fact, with the list that I'm looking at, the monies owed, back monies, and the acting. So just to let you know that it's not
Okay,
just
good.
all of them haven't. Some of them have moved into the positions when they became vacant. So just so you know that, and then they'll made whole by the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. Point of inquiry, Senator Sarro, then we're going to Senator Joseph Hinson Damas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to call you Elliot. Antoine, CFO Antoine. I apologize. Payments to Cigna. At one point, we overpaid Cigna, right? Did we? Go ahead. Name and title, sorry.
Charmaine Modeste Antoine. We have had issues paying Cigna on time consistently. So we are current with the payments as of today. They are in overpayment status, but they normally receive huge credits a couple times each week.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Senator Joseph, you're recognized.
A pleasant good day, Mr. Chairman, colleagues, as well as testifiers. We're having a slight feedback. Thank you so much. It's been addressed. At least I want to, thank the hardworking people at the Department of Human Services for their work over the years, especially during this time of the pandemic. Commissioner, I want to thank you and your leadership team for all that you've been doing in spite of some of the challenges that we have. I want to, Mr. Chairman, there's this feedback and it has me a bit discombobulated. So is it possible we could take a little break until we get it addressed and hold on my time?
Say that again. I'm not getting any feedback here. You're as clear as day. Tell me what's happening.
Yes, it's internally here in the chambers, sir.
Okay, media knows how to deal with that in St. Thomas. They'll just turn it off so you don't get a feedback. They will deal with it as you continue talking.
I'm happy to hear your optimism, but it's still occurring. So let me just ask a couple of questions. I did go through the post-audit listing for personnel services, and I came up with a number relative to the vacant position as listed in post-audit. I counted 144 vacant and 62 new positions. Now, kindly indicate to us, Commissioner, if you are going to be actually expending your entire budget, this budget that you are asking for on these to fill these 144 vacant positions.
I'll allow DC Rojas. However, I believe the list that you're currently looking at may not be completely correct.
Then, Mr. Chairman, may I request through the chair a list of their current vacant positions, as well as their current new positions through the chair. Commissioner, I read your testimony intently, and I had a few questions regarding on page 7 of your testimony. You indicated that you have some critical hiring needs. Kindly indicate the number of those positions that you have that is critically higher needs.
I believe it was 99, DC Rojas, is that correct? Additional? And I believe it's in the appendix section as well, Ms. Senator Joseph?
It's in the appendix?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't get to read through all of the appendices. Okay, so it's 99 critical hiring needs. Okay, thank you so much for placing that on the record. I want to go into one of the areas that I'm familiar with is your federal grants. Okay, do you have indirect costs associated with any of these federal grants that you manage in the Department of Human Services?
Yes, Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. Yes, we normally have.
Kindly indicate the indirect cost rate.
The indirect cost rate is currently, the last issued indirect cost rate was issued for 2019 at 13.73%, and that's split between the central government and our agency about half-half. I can have the exact amounts to you.
If you'd be so kind to provide that information as well. So yours is split between the government and your agency. Now going down to your federal grants, I noted that you have this social services block grant. You're in the red for 1.3 million, is that correct?
No, ma'am. There's normally a lag in getting the awards online. So we have received some of the awards. So we are in the process of sending that information to ensure that we can get that placed online to update
But
the amount.
you have already expended $1.3 million. And what was your funding source, even though that isn't online? Your funding source, what was your funding source for that?
That is normally payroll.
I'm sorry?
I said right now the payroll is significantly the payroll is, the block grant is significantly funding the payroll for certain areas. So that's the amount that's being reported as expended.
Name.
Okay.
Sorry?
And then you
One minute, Senator.
had,
Keep on stating your name.
and that grant expired that grant would have expired this year, September 30th, 2021. But then I go down a little further and I see you having the same issue for a grant that is expiring in September 30th, 2022. Let me make sure because these numbers are so small on this chart. And you have 1.1 million, sorry, that you're in the red for. But you have this other grant which will be expiring, is the same social services block grant, right? That will be expiring in September 30th of 2022, and you have money in that fund, which totals 1.5 million.
Charmaine.
So tell me how you're managing these sources of fund, because for me, it looks like something is happening there that leads to management or of how we are managing the funds and pulling them down. Tell me how you're going to address these two red area where you have overspent on these two areas. These two grants. Let me tell you the project numbers. The project number is geez, I'm bread. This thing is so small. F6 and look like F7293. What is the strategy? What is the strategy? Because first thing they like to say is that we are mismanaging our money, the federal money. What is the strategy?
Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. I can assure you, Senator, that these grants are in the process of establishing the awards. There has been a lag, as the commissioner mentioned. 2 years seems like a long time, but we have found that several of the grants were addressed to addresses that we weren't actually receiving the awards. There were some delays in us receiving the awards. And so now we reached out to the regulatory bodies. We are consistently receiving the awards on a timely basis. So we're now getting the awards. We're in the process of incorporating a new process at OMB, ensuring that all of the information is in the e-service system and ensuring that we have the spending plans associated with those. And based on the new process, there's been a little bit of a lag, but I assure you, we are in the process of getting all of these awards that are outstanding placed online.
2 minutes.
Have your funders indicated, because that's not the only program, you know. I looked down here and I saw you had some for TANF. TANF, you're in the red too for $220,000. So I'm looking at that you've overspent. Have the funders, your federal funders, your federal partners, have they indicated to you in writing that you can utilize the monies that were expended, because you had to have used our general fund monies to cover the cost of payroll for these employees that would normally be paid through the grant? So have they indicated that you can now utilize in writing? Have they indicated that you can now utilize the funding that you get available from the funding sources for these grants, social services block grant, to pay for these costs, and so you could do the necessary reconciliation?
Yes, ma'am. We do have all of the approvals. We work very closely, as the commissioner mentioned, with our federal, Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO.
Okay, so I want to go to the commissioner. Are any of your critical hires going to be individuals to assist the CFO with managing these federal funds?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
And
how many positions?
I'll allow her to answer for the fiscal office of what the needs are specifically to run the multiple grants.
Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. We have 9 positions listed in the critical vacancies. As the commissioner mentioned, there has been challenges with recruiting for the fiscal office. We are in the process of establishing the grants unit. We do have a significant amount of grants that require oversight and reporting responsibilities. With the new grants that we're receiving for the COVID funding, the ARPA, the CARISA, there's the specialization that occurs. You have to ensure that you review the program instructions. And so we are recruiting for those positions. We have 9. And
how many of the 9 are ready to go to on board?
Time.
We've had positions for the fiscal office posted for about 60 days, possibly 90 days, without any applicants. And the commissioner mentioned it may be the challenges of the salaries. And so I am working with the commissioner and HR on a strategy for onboarding staff. If we can bring on some office assistants to process the voluminous amount of invoices that we get on a daily basis, then the accountants that have been with the program for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years can be elevated. And so we are internally looking at restructuring, and that's part of our recruiting strategy.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I know that my time has expired.
You may
and I would
conclude.
just
Go ahead and
ask you to allow me to just wrap up, if you'll be so kind.
You may conclude.
Thank you kindly. Now, my line of questioning is really outlined and demonstrated on page 11 of 40, where under the Food and Nutrition Services, SNAP, and this goes to the accounting, we have to now find money totaling $673,331.40 to pay back for disallowed cost. You know, that's the how critical it is for us to get persons who are accountants, but it could also be persons who are trained. You can have persons who have the background and the experience. So I'm hopeful, Ms. Modeste, that you get some people there who could support you and support the agency so we don't have to be paying back the money out of the general fund because we don't have no money. We need all the federal dollars. Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman, for the leeway.
Thank you, Senator Joseph. You do have a grants administrator, though.
Yes,
That person is on?
yes.
Okay. Because I'm not hearing them answer the questions relative to grants, or they think we're
So,
gonna.
if I can clarify, so the grants administrator does help with the e-service and training, and it's under the fiscal office. However, each administrator for the programs are really responsible for their grants aspect of things. They write the grant, they develop the budgets and all of that. So the grants administrator does more of the administrative role, not the actual aspect of it. So all of our administrators are expertise in their own areas.
And are they doing their job up to snuff in terms of being able to account for the monies that are allocated to them?
Yes, and it relies heavily on the fiscal. So if you don't have an accountant or you're short-staffed, then that information then doesn't get to them timely in order to help with it.
And that's what I'm asking, is the information from those separate grant administrators flow into the CFO in a timely manner so that she can be able to reconcile her figures, et cetera?
As Commissioner Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO, as the Commissioner mentioned, based on the staffing constraints that we have, it's been a struggle, but the team, the skeleton.
Staffing constraint to your part, but I'm talking about the individual divisions, the individual grant administrators like
No.
SNAP.
There's one grant administrator at the Department of Human Services.
So one grants administrator, but each individual that's currently on, the administrators for their program are the ones that are responsible for that. So it flows
those are who
into
I'm
the
talking
fiscal.
about.
Yes. So they,
Is it flowing? That's all I'm asking. Are those individuals, are they providing the information like they should?
for the most part, majority of the time.
Okay, and you have one contract administrator?
Yes.
That person is on leave?
Yes.
How long now?
3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They'll be out for a period of time. So what we've done, some are with the other contracts. So the Medicaid contracts, I have somebody that's working on the Medicaid. The attorney, our legal counsel, has now been trained specifically, so she's been helping to work on that as well. It's definitely a deficit in our area considering the amount of grants we have.
Senator Fred Gregory, point of inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleague that spoke earlier made reference to an amount of funds that has to be paid back. I think it's in the post-audit report. I think it's some $670,000, et cetera. What is the cause for that, and what are the corrective actions that you have put in place to mitigate that from occurring in the future? Thank you.
Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. These were due to the review of the SNAP program for disallowed costs for 2017 and 2018 that were cost allocated without an approved cost allocation methodology. And so when the reviewers came in 2019 and they notified us that these costs were disallowed, we stopped applying those costs to the grant using that methodology. And that's why there's the push for the cost allocation plan that would go across the Human Services Agency, but is mandatory for some programs such as the Title IV-E program.
What type of costs were disallowed? What were they?
They were shared costs like cleaning, security, because we didn't have an approved cost allocation methodology, they were disallowed.
Okay, are you gonna have that cost allocation methodology in place by when, or you have it already?
Working on it.
We're working on a cost allocation plan. We're working with a vendor to ensure that all the documentation is in place to execute the contract. We have identified the funding, and sufficient funding has been placed in the 2022 budget to cover it.
The target date for that is?
Well, the process is a 2-year process. We were hoping to get started before the end of this fiscal year. But because the contract process takes a little bit, we hope to get started at the beginning of 2022.
You made reference to 7.5 million Cigna. What was that? I missed that. I was
Standing costs.
7.5.
So
$7.5 million.
Senator
And
Saru
Senator
asked
Saru asked a question.
about Cigna,
Well, the amount that we owe Cigna varies based on the prescription.
Like it was something with an overpay or something you said? Did you say overpay?
Okay, not by 7.5 million. Yes, we are in overpayment status currently with Cigna. We
And
have
this is for what services?
the prescription drugs for the
Pharmaceutical.
Medicaid program. Prescription drugs for the Medicaid program.
May I?
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner with Oversight of Medicaid. With the Cigna, there is an agreement. You have to fund the account of up to close to $500,000 in advance because the medication costs hit throughout the week. So at any given point, our medication costs may be $1.1 million, then we'll be in a deficit. So when Ms. CFO is talking about an overpayment currently maybe as of today, but by tomorrow, you could have
Okay.
$500,000 charged to that account, just to clarify.
Okay. Your lease. I see that we have a lease for the Mars Hill Wheel of Fortune property in the amount of $478,000. Why are we entering into a new lease at the same site, the same property, for $70,000? I thought the whole building was human services.
No, it was not. Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. The lease, the first lease, which we're in already, was for the DFA and the MAP, Medicaid staff. If you recall, the Energy Office was previously in a section or wing of.
And they're moving.
And they moved. So now we're going to be moving our hardworking seniors, Robert Grigg, and moving them to the Mars Hill location where the former Energy Office was.
Okay, so senior citizen is moving out of Herbert Green.
Senior Citizens Affairs, all the programs that they can get now will be in a very much upgraded building in Mars Hill.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear you say that. So are we going to now renovate those rooms and turn them into rooms for seniors, for the elderly population?
That is why we're vacating, so we could proceed with renovations.
Give me some target dates.
Okay, so we have FEMA monies, which is currently for the current property. We are close to being obligated to the tune of about $4 million
For the
proceed to start doing the repairs.
And that would give you an additional, how many rooms?
It may give us additional rooms, Senator, but we cannot necessarily open the beds without the concurrent staff. Remember, our goal is to be.
We need beds for
Yes.
seniors.
You're gonna
So
pay-
staff ain't a big issue for us to find monies for staff. We need to know, hold up, we need to know what is the cost.
So we
Good.
can hire, so we can prepare.
Pat yourself on the back. It took 4 years or 5 years. So pat yourself on the back that we finally are not using this contracting company to hire our own people. That contract was so crazy. So now they're full-fledged government employees.
That's why we're in the transition process. That's what I just sent you over the weekend, sir.
So submit a plan for those additional rooms and the staff.
Yes,
And if we
Senator.
could have that plan for the staffing, Ms. Rojas, you're listening, for the additional rooms for Herbert Grigg, staffing at Herbert Grigg in the next 2 weeks, if we can have that staffing plan.
So FEMA is a reimbursable program, so making sure that we get the funding to actually make the space good, that'll be the contingency. So
Yeah.
I will do a full plan on making sure that FEMA is in that process and what their timeline is as far as the funding is concerned to ensure that the building's done.
Okay, but we need an assessment as to what is going to be the cost.
Okay.
Because we can't have, this is like going into the Anna Soap situation with the mental health. If it's going to cost $700,000-$800,000 to get 20 additional seniors in, we can't wait for FEMA 5 years down the line.
Exactly.
We are going to have to be able to make some decisions as to how we're going to move up, because we have those borders that, are you paying for the borders in Puerto Rico that the hospital sent to Puerto Rico from the hospital?
No, sir.
Okay, so, and that's really a human services responsibility.
I did not place them at Casas de Salud, sir.
So you guys.
Meaning that I didn't
I
have
will-
guardianship over them.
Okay. That's a conversation need to be had, though. It is a conversation. Let me go. Senator DeGraff, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, testifiers, all viewing, listening, and present. Commissioner D and your team, thank you for all you do for the people at Vernellans, and you have my support. Now, I'd like to make a quick mention of a termite nest by your on St. John at the Head Start, the closed down Head Start. There's a large termite nest there going over into the adjacent buildings and stuff. So if you could have your maintenance team look at it to try to see if you could eradicate that nest on St. John.
Yes, sir.
Back to employees. You're mentioning about the acting position, the acting pay. That $400,000 come to about $9,000 plus for each of those employees. That's how it would be,
No,
roughly, or
No,
different
sir.
employees, different amounts. That's how it is.
Every employee is a different amount, sir.
Okay. Okay. So now, have all your unionized employees, non-unionized employees received their wage increases?
Getting a little
If
bit
I
of feedback.
may. Deputy Commissioner Rhoda Rojas. Sorry, I'm hearing a feedback. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me clearly.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Senator DeGraff, for the question. We are currently, for some of our unions, still in negotiations, and that is USW Masters and SIU, YRC, and BOC for the correction officers. So those are still in the negotiation process. For the LESU, for the LESU members, their increases are being implemented. They had 2 increases that we were working on. One has come back from through a NOPA process. They do have their new NOPAs, and the second increase that's due to them is being done through the internal DHS process to submit their NOPA, to submit the PRF to OMB for approval. And then once we have everything back, that will get submitted. And then the last group is the SIU organization. The members there, we had 48 members who had incorrect salaries that are being worked on right now. And we have submitted to OMB the funding for the increase that is due to them. And that was submitted last week. We are in a September cohort that our increases for them are due by the end of September. And that's where we are with the increases for the members of unions at DHS.
Okay, good. Good news. So in FY20, you received $150,150 for wage pay increases, and in 21 you received $848,610, I think it is, for wage increases. Was that money spent? All those money spent for wage increases? Other than what you just mentioned there, was that covered for the individuals?
I believe Deputy Commissioner Rojas, I believe the 177 that you're referring to for FY20 are for the COLAs that for the VI Worker Union Head Start employees. And then the 800,000 that you mentioned, I believe as well, those fundings were for the Head Start increases, and that was implemented. And so VI Workers Union increases are all up to date.
Okay, good news. The facilities, I know the capital outlay wasn't that much. On St. Thomas Human Services building, what is the status of that building, and is there any funds needed to address anything? in the bill?
Currently, I have Deputy Commissioner of Operations, also with my Disaster Recovery Specialist, Ms. Akila O'Brien on, but basically, most of the funding for the New Hanson Complex specifically will be coming from FEMA. And so for us, that's the assessment. Capital outlay for less than $50,000 for Department of Human Services that has over 13 facilities is a little bit lower than I would have liked to see. But I think the New Hanson Complex, if I'm not mistaken, is about, was it 4 million? I think it's about 4 million. I'll need to double check that for you, Senator DeGraff. But most of the funding for New Hanson Complex is specifically from FEMA-related funds, no GVI funding.
And also in St. Croix, you said that 13 was to cover everything?
No, yeah, that capital outlay. So if you look at our number of buildings that we currently own, because my ultimate goal would be to get out of a rental capacity and be able to have my own space. So that's kind of our vision. However, in saying that, you would still need all of the buildings. Like, for example, in Estate Diamond and St. Croix, we have lots of buildings there, but we would love to need to renovate all of them specifically, and $45,000 would not be enough for capital outlay.
2 minutes.
Okay, the MEP Provider Relations Unit, how many personnel in that unit right now?
The personnel, so for MAP, for the provider relations specifically, how many do we currently have? We could probably do a query real quick for you on that.
Okay, we could follow up on that for me and find out, the staffing, how much individuals you need. Now, you control the Senior Citizen Fund. How much money is in that fund?
Which fund specifically, revolving fund
Senior Citizen Center.
or the Senior Citizen Center Fund?
The Senior Citizen Center, the Senior Citizen Revolving Fund, and the Home for the Aged Revolving Fund, and the Crisis Intervention Fund. I'd like to know how much money are in those particular funds.
Give me a second, let me get that to you. Charmaine Modeste Antoine.
Sure, and also now for the Queen Louise Home, I believe Housing Finance Authority from in either the 32nd or 33rd legislature had provided, I think it was $15 million between Queen Louise and Herbert Gregg for build out. Is that money still available?
Would you mind stating the question one more time? So for what we're doing right now for Queen Louise Home for the Aged, we're applying for a community development block grant disaster funding.
Awarded between Queen Louise Home and I think it was the Herbert Gregg Home.
So we have
for those facilities to be, for that money to be used to repair, rebuild those facilities. Is that money still available?
So we don't have all of the funding for both facilities quite yet. We're in the middle of applying. So the CDBG, or the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Funding, we're going to have to mix that with some other funding in order to get the total amount. So for example, a total renovation for a 60-bed skilled nursing facility for St. Croix is going to be about $61 million. And for Queen Louise Home for the Aged in St. Thomas, once we acquire the land and start building that from the ground up, that'll be about $48 million, sir. So we do not have the full allotment for either one of those.
Time.
Okay, and if I may wrap up, Mr. Chair, and then you could give me those funding amounts.
Yes, you may.
Do you have any savings from 21 budget that you're looking at? Because of the 2020 with COVID beginning and that, are we looking at any savings that may be passed over into the budget?
I don't believe so. That's why we were talking about a little bit earlier. We'll make sure that we look at that a little bit closer for this body to ensure that we're able to expend all of our funding for 2021.
Okay, thank you. And like I said, for those funds, if you when you find them, if you could give me that information. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Senator DeGraff. As soon as you get the amount, just give me a signal, and I'll let you put it on the record.
So I have for the Medicaid, there are 28 full-time employees and 9 temporary employees. specifically in the area that Senator DeGraff asked about. Is that provider relations, DC Rojas?
And that's MAP?
Correct.
Mr. Smith, how you doing? Mr. Smith, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning. For provider relations, we require 3 additional claim reviewers and 1 intake person. We could probably use 2 intake, 1 for St. Thomas, St. John, and 1 for St. Croix, but we'll do it 1 right now.
Do we have, how are we making out with credentialing doctors or providers? Any backlog, or is it a seamless
We are
process now?
doing so great.
No.
I'm so thankful
Well,
for asking.
Yeah, the commissioner mentioned in her testimony, since the release to the department and, under the leadership of the commissioner and the assistant commissioner, that is no longer an issue.
So we don't have any outstanding, you're turning it around in how long? How long it takes you to turn around a provider?
If we get all the
Once
documentation, go ahead, Director.
Once all the documentation is completed.
You go ahead, Commissioner.
As soon as, I can sign that in 5 minutes. Literally, I get a text of when it comes to me, and I sign off on the provider agreement. So there's no holding off because I sign
Okay.
everything electronically.
So we presently don't have any provider who has submitted all the information that has been waiting for weeks. That's gone.
If they've submitted everything that they're supposed to in a time and nothing's expired and they're ready to go, then it'll be a quick turnaround. In the event that they don't have all of their documents and/or licensure on file, then that'll be an issue.
CFO?
Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. I just need to clarify that the payments to the providers happen a little bit different from
Yes.
the other payments.
Yes.
It happens via a cycle. And so the entire cycle is fed to the ERP system. If there's an error within the cycle or the batch, then that may hold up the process, which has happened in the last 90 days. We have been on schedule with the cycles over the last couple of weeks, and so we haven't received any notification that there were any errors in any batch. So there should be no issues, but if there's any time an issue with the batch being held up for some type of error, that would be completely separate from the check run cycles.
Okay, before I go to the point, I'm getting some concerns still about the child care providers. They said if you could repeat the information, because some child care providers have been calling and said they haven't been paid from September of last year. So how are we, and we keep on getting that, we hear that it's going out, but then we have these individuals who continue to say that they have not been paid. I have asked my staff to get the specific names. So, and Senator Francis, I think, have some,
I have a
everybody
few
probably have
too.
some,
Yes.
so that we can provide you with those specific names that have not been paid. But can you repeat the information as to why, or an explanation as to why some child care providers have not been paid since September?
Oh, the Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin, she's been working with them directly.
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin, the issues or challenges with the child care payments have been all around. Some has been documentation that's provided by the child care providers, yes, from as far back as 2020, are still duplicate invoices and other issues. One of the things that was holding the payments up was our not having a vehicle for payment, sort of the same issue with Medicaid. Since authority has been given to the Department of Human Services to execute our own agreements, we've executed 74 of them since the beginning of the year.
It no longer goes to PMP.
No, it does not.
Praise God. Go ahead.
So we have agreements in place, like I mentioned earlier, so the 2021s are being paid. Because of some of the staffing issues, in order to get the 2020 payments done that we have gotten done, and we've gotten a lot of them done over the last few weeks, my office has literally had to go into the payment system, locate invoices, correlate them with purchase orders, put them in a package, and send them to the fiscal office to get that done. And then, since they've been forwarded to the Department of Finance, we've subsequently had to go and create a spreadsheet from the approval that was gotten from PMP in order that everything that was approved shows, so that Department of Finance, I guess,
So
that
you-
would prevent us from trying to get paid anything that was not specifically
Okay,
approved.
so you have a mechanism in place to get those individuals from September 2020 paid?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you're going to be working with, or notifying those individuals who are missing information or have duplicate information as to what they need to turn in so that you could be able to process the paperwork?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if I have specific names, I will provide it to you.
Can I do a plug for the $30,000 of the applications to improve their facilities? Right now, that's $30,000 for childcare, licensed childcare facilities they can apply for. That ends at the end of July. It's like a little mini grant.
You need $30,000? You said?
No, what I'm telling, the childcare providers,
Oh, okay, wait. Start over.
I'm sorry.
Start
So
over.
this is, the payment issue is a separate issue, but I wanted to put a plug in that we got additional federal money.
So every single child
Every
care
single
provider,
licensed childcare provider facility may apply for up to $30,000.
okay, stop.
Yes,
How?
an application. It's a very short application.
Is the application online?
Yes.
Who has the address, the site directly? Say it slowly so that they can, and then we put it out. There's $30,000 in federal funds that child care providers can apply for and get. You are already in the system. Apply for that $30,000. So we're going to see the application process. We're going to give out the website. Apply for the $30,000. We have to spend these federal funds, or they're going to go back. St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John. So give me the application and then 2 points. Give me the site. You have applications, you could give us some, and we pass it out for you.
Yeah, well, I was going to hand deliver a few myself. But it's a great opportunity because like if you want to pay your rent for a year, you can pay your rent for a year. If you want to buy a generator, you can buy your generator. If you want to reinforce your PPEs or cleaning supplies, feel free to do so. If you want to do a new curriculum or buy tablets for your children that are in your facility, you want to upgrade your security, there's so many options.
And they need to provide the invoices after they're done, reconcile.
They'll reconcile it
Okay.
all for us, yes.
So give us the address. Website? What's the website?
They can call the childcare offices.
Oh God, sometimes when they call, we call them forever and we can't get through. I want something that they could just get it.
We can upload the mini grant application to the
Okay.
DHS website.
So that they
They
could call or they could come into the office and pick up the application?
They
Or
can
we
call
can
and
email
come
it
in.
to them.
Carla Benjamin, Assistant Commissioner. I do believe that the child care program has actually emailed the information out on a mass email, and we followed up because there wasn't a very good response, which is why Commissioner is plugging it. All they have to do is apply. There aren't very many situations where an application would be denied, and at the end of the process, all they need to do is provide documentation to show that the money was spent in the way that they said they would in the budget.
Okay. Are you email already to the child care providers, but you haven't received a good response?
I think we got 10.
We got 10.
Yeah.
And how much child care providers we have?
100 and
Licensed, 172.
172. And we got back 10.
correct.
For $30,000, and all they need to do is fill an application. I'm putting it out there, you know. $30,000, all you need to do is fill an application out. So we don't want to hear no excuses. Senator Sauer, you wanted a point, and then Senator Carrion. And Senator James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a two-pronged question. So I'm seeing this MAP listing, and the testimony is very, you straddle the fence in saying what's happening in MAP. You're careful with your words. Do you still have the same 2 employees in provider relations? Mr.
Same
Smith?
2.
You had 2 employees in provider relations that were pleading for help, and we refunded positions for MAP. Did we add any to provider relations, Mr. Smith? And the second one would be how you're wording, what I'm comprehending from the reading is that the Medicaid Program Integrity Unit it's not up and running. You intend to have it up and running?
McCall Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner with oversight of Medicaid. So we created all of the new positions. We've already started to interview.
So you don't, it's not running though, you're in
It's
the
not-
process of getting it?
We-
Because the
yeah.
way your testimony reads, somebody who don't know how to read and comprehend well will think that you have a program up and running, so you're on the way. So, okay, the last point is the timeline. What's the
Yes.
timeline to get the integrity unit up and running?
Yes, we'll be doing interviews for the rest of July and August, and I'm anticipating hires before the end of August.
So what's the timeline? Do you intend to have the unit up and running by October 1?
I would say full implementation pending on the interviews and the right candidates before the end of September. We should have that unit up and running.
And the 2 employees, provider relations still have the 2 employees?
Mr. Smith can let you know who works with provider relations.
Mr. Smith?
Gary Smith, Medicaid Director. There are 5 staff working in the provider relations unit, Senator Saru. Has been for since dating back to sometime in 2018.
Mr. Chair, if I may clarify, in 2018, when he testified before us in the cardiac center, those employees belonged to a different unit and they were assisting in provider relations. That was his response vividly. Do we have people that have been hired specifically for the provider relations unit?
So, Senator Saru, again, we have 5 employees that have been working within the provider relations unit since back in 2018, and we have not hired any additional staff as yet, but we did do an interview 2 or 3 weeks ago,
Hold up 1 minute, Mr. Smith.
we will be.
How many are on sick leave?
Say that again?
How many of the 5 are on sick leave?
No one on sick leave right now.
So all 5 are back to work. 'Cause the last time I know we spoke, you had a number of individuals out on sick leave from that particular office. So you're saying now you have all 5 bodies that are back in the provider office back working?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just need to
Okay,
clarify
thank
the
you.
question. The question was, he did not hire. I'm telling you the answer.
Right, so-
provider relations only have 2 employees still, and they were borrowing employees or cross-training employees from other areas. That total, in his eyes, the 5. But we put money in the budget. Did he hire? Because those 2 employees are on St. Thomas, St. John. So did he hire people to fully staff up the provider relations area of MEP? And the answer, Mr. Chair, is no. He said they're working on it and they're doing interviews and something, but the answer is no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have any provider relations individuals on St. Croix?
McCall Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. Yes, we have Ms. Beverly Joseph, and she oversees the provider relations, and she has, I believe, 2 staff who work with her, and the 2 on St. Thomas.
So Ms. Joseph have 2 staff on St. Croix.
And then the two on St. Thomas who work with the provider relations.
Okay, so Beverly plus 2, that's 3, and Mrs. Smith, or 2 more as in
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, may I clarify something? So the provider relations unit was established when, I came on board, and there was basically one person addressing provider applications. Okay? So what I did is I had conversations with a couple of staff and, worked with Ms. Beverly Joseph, and we established the provider relations unit. Now, regarding
so Ms. Joseph
of
joined
those
you.
positions.
Ms. Joseph joined you when, last year?
No.
No, I met Ms. Joseph at the program. She was working with the program when I came up.
Okay, so let me stress your question. 1 minute. We gave $408,000 to MEP. Was that money spent? We gave $408,000 for vacancies. Was that spent?
Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner with Oversight. As we talked about, the temporary hires are going permanent, and they are going to be paid back pay, retro pay to October. And before the end of this year, we should have staff with that 407,000. So there will be some expenditures, but it will not all be expended in fiscal year
So
2021.
right now, have we hired anyone with the 408, or you're in the process of temporary back pay? 'Cause we gave money to hire permanent positions. Have we hired any permanent position with the 408,000?
The August 2nd date will be the first 9 coming on as
Okay,
hires.
so we're going to have 9 people coming on for the first in August.
Right, and then
Okay.
you will see the liquidation coming down from that. And as Mr. Smith said, he and his staff and myself, we're in the midst of hiring. We had a director of program integrity. I was part of that interview. The candidates, we moved on because we needed to get some other candidates for interview.
So those 9 were temporary workers before?
Yes,
So they were working with Human Services in a
In-
temporary position
exactly,
in MAP?
in MAP.
Okay. For the
Okay.
whole year?
Yes, yes.
So
Some of them
how
even
come it took so long
before.
to transfer, to get those temporary workers permanent, and we gave the money from October 1st?
So when you gave the money, Senator, it is not necessarily when the monies were released. As you know,
Well, we didn't need the full 408 to be released on them because it was going to be paid every 2 weeks. We only needed enough to pay the 9 individuals and every 2-week cycle.
yes, but in order to send for the PRFs, which triggers the personnel hires, OMB has to release those funding. DC Rojas can
So
say,
you just got a release.
I believe it was somewhere around March or April of 2021.
So those 9 temporary workers have been paid out of a different account?
No, they were being paid from our allocation, regular 20 that we had for 2021, but with the permanent hires, sir, they will be getting increases because they're now going into the classified union, and some of them are due increases.
Okay. So the bulk of the 408,000 still exists. So you could reprogram some of that to pay some of your outstanding.
Yes.
Senator, carry on. Senator Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, Assistant Commissioner Benjamin was talking about that the department now is dealing with their own procurement process. So I want to know what's the turnaround time for that? Because we get complaints coming in that stuff are just taking forever to be processed and too long. So she spoke about the mechanism, but what's the time frame, the turnaround time for that?
From the time the provider,
Put your name on the record.
Carla Benjamin, Assistant Commissioner, when the Child Care Office receives the documentation, they have given a 5-day time frame to vet and make sure that the invoices and everything is in place. And the Fiscal Office has given a turnaround time of, I believe they said 5 days as well. And then, as I understand, the Department of Finance has 10 days to 2 weeks to vet, to make sure that the documentation is correct, and then the payment can be disbursed if the funding is available.
So within a month time?
A month is liberal, yes.
And internally within your divisions and department where requests are made, what's the turnaround time for that? If someone, a director or division, is making a request for supplies or anything that they need within their budget for the department, what's the hold up and why also that process sometimes delays so much?
I'm not sure, Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. I'm not sure I captured your question correctly. But if you're asking about the turnaround time frame for when things get processed, when submitted to the fiscal office, it's possible because we've been on monthly allotments, we've been having to manage the line item categories that funding is available. So a program, we have about 40 different programs that we've assigned general fund accounts to, and a program may not have sufficient if they need supplies for $10,000, they may only have $6,000 available because the amount of allotments that have been released, and it won't be able to be processed sufficiently. So we are constantly working on coordinating the time to ensure that we can process the payments for our various programs. I'm not sure I captured your question.
No, you did. You
Right,
did.
okay,
It's
good.
based on the allotment you received,
Okay,
so
good.
that gives me some clarity as to what's happening.
Thank you so much. Senator James.
Good afternoon to the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Good afternoon, testifiers. My question is, I see here the Office of Intake and Emergency Services. Do we have vacancies in that office?
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Carla Benjamin, Assistant Commissioner. Yes, Senator, we do.
Okay, because in the budget, it's hard to determine which vacancies belong to which division. So can you provide to me how many vacancies you have in the Office of Intake and Emergency Services? And while you're looking up that information, the reason why I'm asking that, because it says here that the Office of Intake and Emergency Services has opened 226 investigations of suspected child abuse and neglect. So if there's a high need for staff in there, I'd like you to provide those vacancies to us. Because, as we speak about COVID-19 and all the things that are going on in the territory, we do have an issue in the territory where our children are being neglected and abused. And for an office that has so many cases, I want to make sure that we place a high priority on getting those vacancies filled. So, can I get that information?
Yes, Senator. And in my answer, you'll get some of the sort of confusion that has happened with the vacancy question to date. So in our St. Croix office, we have a vacancy for a district manager. Someone has been acting. And we have a need for an administrative assistant. And I'm saying Ms. DC Rojas might be able to add some light to this. I'm using the terms vacancy and a need because some of the positions that we need to fill are not funded. So on St. Croix, the district manager position remains vacant. Someone has been acting for some time. We need an administrative assistant.
District manager for which district?
For St. Croix.
St. Croix.
Yes. And then we have, the social worker who's acting as district manager is kind of sitting in two positions. When she moves on to be a district manager, her social worker position becomes available, and that would be a vacancy at that point because it would be funded, you would backfill it. On the St. Thomas St. John district, there's a need for a social worker on St. John, and there's a need, there's a need for 2 social workers on St. Thomas. However, we are able to backfill a position of someone who retired. And there is also a need for an intake counselor. They're the ones that do brief services.
Each and every single division and office within the Department of Human Services should be placed as a priority, but I'm kindly asking that we place this specific Office of Intake and Emergency Services as a higher priority. 226 investigations of suspected child abuse and neglect, and I'm hoping and praying out of those cases, it does result in arrest. That's cruelty, man. Cruelty. And it's hard to even sit here and find out that's what's really going on here in the territory. 226 investigations of suspected child abuse and neglect. Wow. So whatever funding you need, please make sure that you let us know so we can beef up when it comes to that office. And I know the last time you came before us, I inquired about the disparity with the social workers, and I think you were able to clarify that there. I think at one point we only had 1 social worker on St. Croix and had 4 on St. Thomas. So with the new social worker positions that we see here in the budget, that's what the St. Croix district?
So, Carla Benjamin, Assistant Commissioner, the position social worker and the appearance on any list might be sort of misleading. There are a number of social workers whose positions are now family services specialists. And we also have caseworkers. So it's not a true representation of how much staff is doing social work type work in the divisions.
So we still have that disparity between the two districts when it comes to the social workers. I know there's a high need for social workers in the territory that's relating to schools. And we know there's a high possibility school might not open again, but I just want to make sure that we're prepared for that. Are we prepared as having those numbers available? Do we have new positions for social workers in the District of St. Croix?
There is a need for staffing in all the units that have social workers.
No, but is there a vacancy right now? Because I'm going through the vacancies and you say it doesn't really represent a true reflection of social workers compared to case workers. I need to know specifically when it comes to those who assist with the school children.
All of our social workers deal with school children.
Okay, understood. But you're getting what I'm coming from, right? The last
Yes.
time when you came here, you told me you only had one person in the District of St. Croix. So what I'm leading to, are we beefing up social workers in the District of St. Croix? Is there vacancies?
There are vacancies, and we need funding for additional vacancies.
And is included in this budget?
Yes, it would appear under critical hires.
Understood.
The ones that we need funding for appear on the critical hires appendix, which I believe is page 27, and then the funded vacancies are in our budget projection.
And I see in the post-audit report, when it comes to pharmacy assistance for the age, I'm not sure if it's being defunded or not, but I see that there isn't any funds appropriated for the FY 2022.
McCall Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner with Oversight. The Pharmacy Assistance Fund comes through the VLTs or the video lottery. And so the funds come from the lottery department. So that's what we are dependent upon.
So you're receiving those funds?
We receive them on a quarterly basis. At this point, we may be a little bit behind, but usually the lottery will make it whole before the end of the fiscal year.
One minute, 30
so
seconds.
Can you just clarify, what is the true issue with the delay with getting the funds from the VLTs to deal with the pharmacy assistance for the age? What is the delay?
McCall Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner, well, they deposit and they send the monies to the fund, which is managed by the Department of Finance. And then as soon as those monies come, we set up the budgets for the fiscal year.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that clarification. And then I see in the budget you have 18 new positions for nurses. Those positions are filled, right?
Not all of them.
McCall Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. The nurses' positions, we have those available. Commissioner mentioned just before you came in, we're having some struggles with the current salaries of the positions. The union for those positions is still negotiating. So we have, for example, we've hired the St. Croix, about 5 or 6 of them. St. Thomas, we offered 3 and 3 refused. We're processing NOPAs now for, I believe, 3 additional
So let me ask this
ones.
question. Sorry to cut you off. Out of the 18 new positions for nurses, how many of them have been filled?
We had 5 on St. Croix, and DC Rojas, if you could give me the St. Thomas number, because that's an in-process number.
Please.
Deputy Commissioner Rojas, we hired a total of 1 in St. Thomas. As Assistant Commissioner McCall Reimer Brown said, we made 3 offers and they were declined. We also are in the process of completing interviews, and we have a couple of the nurses that I have to work with Division of Personnel on because of dual employment. And so we have to work with Division of Personnel to bring them on.
Time.
Thank you for that explanation. And I see here where you have a grant for the energy crisis elder/other, and it's $1.1 million. It seems very interesting. Can you break that down for me? What that grant is about, and how does it benefit our elders?
Okay, Mikhail Reimer Brown. From GVI, we usually get about $1.1 million for energy assistance, and we give that out to our seniors and adults with disabilities on a monthly basis. So that is a very important program. However, on the federal side, we're about to launch in a larger way our LIHEAP, Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. That's going to be opened up during the month of August to all low-income families.
And if you don't mind me asking, how many individuals benefit from this program?
From the ECAP, I could get that number for you. I just have to flip to that. I don't want to guess. I have the information here.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, just one last question regarding, I see here that you provided assistance to 32 college students to receive tuition assistance, which includes travel, room, and board, and as well as books. Is there something in there that speaks to some obligation of them being able to come back to the territory and provide the services once they get a degree? How does that go? But that's for personnel.
So specifically, that's a federal program. So it goes back to federal dollars that go to help individual disabilities to go to college. And so they don't necessarily have to come back necessarily to do it. Some are away and some are local.
Okay, understood. I'm happy to know that you're providing those benefits and things to people. I just want to know how does it benefits the territory, but thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Mr. Chair, I have the answer for Senator James, if I may, for the ECAP program.
Thank you, Senator James. You go ahead and respond.
Yes, Mikhail Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner, and there were 489 individuals who benefited during FY21. And we had a total of 4,303 issuances to seniors.
Thank you. Thank you so much, colleagues. Senator Opata is here now. Senator Opata, welcome. Senator Fred Gregory, welcome. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm present today, as usual. Good afternoon to Human Services. Good afternoon, Commissioner, to you and your team. I see that you guys are wearing some morning-like colors today, the black and purples. I'm not sure what that represents. Oh, you're matching the chair, I see. Okay,
And our chairman.
I'm gonna rest that down then. I didn't realize the chair was wearing purple as well, but let me get back to the budget. So, I was trying to figure out where in the testimony or in your appendices that you indicated exactly what that $4 million difference is that you're asking for in the FY 2022 budget. So you're asking to, for an increase of from 18.8 to $22.8 million for FY 2022. So what is that made up of? What is it, new positions? What is it?
Charmaine Modeste Antoine,
And then I'll give DC Rosa.
CFO. I may have to tag team with Deputy Commissioner Rhoda Rojas because the 22.8 is the proposed amount for personnel that was placed in the executive budget for human services. So for 2021, we received 18.
Yeah, but I asked you, what does $4 million represent?
Okay, so now DC Rojas can drill down.
Hold that, because I have a lot of questions, and I think that for some odd reason, the Department of Human Services has escaped coming before the legislature for some oversight discussion, because we have a lot of questions. So hold that, and hopefully I'll get the answer at the appropriate time. You also have $10.5 million, an increase of $10.5 million in your other services category. What's included in that $10.5 million? That was not reflected in your testimony. You're coming for a budget hearing, you're asking for an increase. We need to know what it's reflective of. So I don't know if I missed it, but what is that $10 million about? 10.5.
So for the additional the $10 million, $10.5 million, Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. $5 million of that is associated with the Medicaid program, an increase from the prior year that they've received for
So that's the matching.
the local match requirement.
Okay, what's the difference?
About $5 million.
Right, what's the other $5 million for?
Okay, and as Commissioner mentioned, it was in her testimony about the rate increases to execute the contract for our residential services.
So you have
About
5.5 million?
About $2 million of that is for the increases for the residential contracts. Included in that amount as well, we have successfully been able to identify funding for $1.4 million for the design and development implementation of the VIBES system that was mentioned earlier, which is the eligibility and enrollment system. As I also mentioned that the cost allocation plan, the funding has been made available in the 2022 budget. So
Can you, I'm going to stop you there. I think you've pretty much gave me right at 10.5. Can you please forward through the chair a breakout of your other services increase, please?
Will do.
Thank you. I have a question around your Title IV-E program. I note that in your testimony on page 11, you referenced that your increase in the FY 2022 budget will allow you to hire staff, allow you to hire staff to train, etc., license and monitor foster homes, to procure psychological and behavioral services. How do we utilize our Title IV-E funds, and do we have money in that particular fund? I'm a bit surprised that you would be asking to utilize general fund dollars for that purpose, frankly.
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin, for most of the Title IV-B funding, there's a 25% local match. Since the funding came online, the funding came online somewhere around 2017, and it was not until we came on board in 2019 that we realized that the millions of dollars that the Children's Bureau was saying we were receiving, we actually were not.
So you have it now, right?
We do have it now, but
Okay,
the
good.
processes need to be put in place for us to be able to spend that money
Yeah,
in
but you
real
can't
time.
ask us, the legislature, to appropriate money for that purpose. So we need to get from you what those positions are that you have backed in to the FY 2022 budget if you have millions of dollars in that Title IV. Is it E or B?
Title IV-B. But Senator, we can't put salaries on there. It's not like the social services block grant.
But you have other items in here. You have train, license, monitor, procure psychological and behavioral services. So
a percentage of the salaries, if they go directly towards care or services for children in care, we can ask for reimbursement for. But the licensing specialists and the folks who do the licensing and the monitoring, we don't have those. Those positions are vacant and are critical needs in some situations.
the
We don't have-
vacant or the critical needed?
I believe they were on the supplemental list, both. DC Rojas can speak to whether they're vacant or critical need.
Okay, I'm open to hearing that.
Deputy Commissioner Rojas, Rhoda Rojas, in regards to the licensing specialist, again, these were vacancies that were on our FY20 that were cut and not given to us for FY21. They are listed as critical hires, requesting for us to have them.
In what year?
There is one licensing specialist listed right now on the FY22 personnel listing. It's shown actually twice, but that's incorrect because it's shown as having a 0.5 funding.
Okay.
But there actually is a need for 2.
Okay, so let me ask you. Y'all continue to talk about critical needs list. So in FY 2021, you do have a critical needs list, correct? Did you have that conversation with the Office of Management and Budget to address your critical needs, and how much of that request did you receive?
2 minutes.
Yes, we did, and I did a complete comprehensive report on the critical nature as well as the impact for each division by division. I did it.
Succinctly, my time is running.
Yes, I did. No, I didn't get anything.
And what?
No, I did not receive.
So you sent a request to OMB.
Correct.
Does anyone know what that amount was that you sent to OMB?
For the total critical hire.
It was 6.3 million for personnel, not including fringe.
Well, they couldn't give you all, but have you actually done an assessment to determine what your priority needs are?
Yes, we actually, yes.
So can you please send back to this committee an assessment of your priority needs?
Sure.
Okay, because we have financial challenges in this government. We cannot ignore that we do. Under your pharmacy-assisted age, I note that there is a recommendation for a reduction of some $750,000. What would be the reason for that?
For the reduction?
Mm-hmm.
I don't,
From 2.5 million to 1.7.
Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. It wasn't a request by us. It was what was processed in the executive budget. So
Thank you for that. I'm very happy for your honesty, because when the financial team came before us, they tried to convince this committee that they did their homework and they scrubbed their files, and that's why they have a 2-year budget. And that's why we pushed back the way we did, because it is very obvious that numbers were just being thrown around and plugged into this to the 2022 budget, that 2022-23 budget that came down to us. And that's the same responses we continue to get. Did OMB meet with you, Commissioner, around your FY 2022 budget and 23, for that matter?
not like,
Thank you for your response. I figured not. So you asking, well, I want to go back to I think Ms. Rojas need to answer my question with regards to the $4 million increase for the personnel services, because there's just so much to discuss here.
Thank you, Senator Fred Gregory, the Rhoda Rojas Deputy Commissioner. Yes, so the increase in the personnel services includes new positions, a total of 26 new positions, and also it's where all of our lump sums are for overtime, shift differential, and any other totals that we have for personnel costs, including uniform allowances.
Do you have salary increases in that lump sum category?
Time.
The salary, Commissioner Rojas, sorry. The salary increases that are in there are for the expected increases of the SIU Masters group, because they're the ones who are currently does not have their increases, and the LESU correction officers, because they do receive an increase on 10/1, effective 10/1/2021.
Mr. Chair, may I wrap up?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, what is the amount of those increases? And I ask the question because, so those are contracts that's already in play?
Deputy Commissioner Rhoda Rojas. For SIU Masters, that contract is current. And yes, the increase for that, and I will confirm, but it's about $1.2 million.
And what year are you paying for?
That is effective for the FY20. That should have already been implemented for FY20. However, I was informed by OCB that we are in a cohort, so there was a discussion, and that we are in a cohort organized to have those increases implemented in September of this year. And we have submitted the funding request to OMB. I submitted it last week. And once I have that approval, I'll be able to submit the NOPAs for that increase. But that increase, I did make sure to put in for our FY22 budget.
So that would be the new salaries for those employees. Understood.
Correct.
I have more questions, but my time has been called. So I am going to hope that we will have a hearing around human services shortly, so we could really drill down on some of the issues that we're having with the Department of Human Services. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Fred Gregory. Your St. John building status.
The multipurpose center?
Is it in disrepair?
St. John.
Oh, yes, it sure is. I have Deputy Commissioner Miguel Turcochi of Operations. He just visited St. John and has a status.
Mr. Turcochi?
Miguel Turcochi, Deputy Commissioner of Operations. Senator, currently in the St. John Facility Multipurpose Center, on this tomorrow, we will be doing a test for a lab test for mold and mildew so we can move forward with the projects that are currently pending. That's one of the things that are needed for FEMA, and we're going to do that tomorrow, and then wait on the results of the test, and based on the results of the test, that will determine how fast we move forward.
Is the AC not working?
That is correct. The AC is not working at this time, but we are currently taking bids for a temporary fix for that AC.
And so the employees on St. John are working part-time? They're not working 8 hours, they're working 4-hour shift because of the condition of the building?
I can
Yes.
Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. For the St. John, we have very few staff there. Many of them, we have a few of them who are field workers, so they come in, they get their assignments, and they go out. And those are the drivers, our home makers. We just hired a full-time eligibility specialist. She's partially St. Thomas and then on St. John. What we're doing to correct the situation is installing split units in those offices that the staff are there during the day.
And that will be done by when?
We have the estimates, I would say, in August.
Okay. Do you have sufficient maintenance staff for your buildings, Herbert Gregg, et cetera, to really maintain the buildings the way that you're supposed to?
It's a negative.
Okay. Have you included maintenance staff in your budget?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Potter?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner Kazi Gomez, to you and your executive team. I want to really thank you and the staff and management of Department of Human Services for all the work that you do in support of the most vulnerable among us. I'm hearing a feedback again, but I'll try to push through it. Commissioner, in your testimony, you cite the statistic that the territory increased its Medicaid population from 8,000 to 9,000 in 2012 to approximately 33,000 today. And I know that this expansion could only have taken place because DHS contracted with Molina to implement a Medicaid management information system. And I know this was done in partnership with West Virginia, who held a contract with Molina for years. It's my understanding that the USVI Molina contract is slated to expire in 2022. What is the plan for that? What's going to happen if, after this expiration takes place? How will we ensure that the MMIS services are continued at the Department of Human Services?
Thank you. I'll pass that to you.
Yes, Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner with Oversight of Medicaid. For our contract that would be expiring in 2022, Senator, we'll be issuing an RFP. That one will be, a very complex contract. And any contracts that are expiring, especially for MMIS, it will be offered publicly, and all eligible vendors will apply.
Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for that. Dr. Amaro was here, Commissioner, last Friday, I believe, for the hospital, Schneider Hospital's budget hearing, and there was some discussion about dialysis and the challenges the territory is facing providing dialysis care to patients. We know that dialysis takes its toll on patients' bodies. My dad, in his later years, was a dialysis patient. I know sometimes you have to go in there and have treatment 3-4 times a week. This definitely impacts your quality of life. And I think that is why CMS has mandated that Medicaid programs cover organ transplant as one of its services. I know a couple years ago, DHS had hired 2 transplant coordinators. What is the department, where is the department rather, with respect to this whole transplant issue?
Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. We were successful this year to have one of our members who received an organ transplant. So we're very happy with that. We have currently our current contractual doctor who has been a kidney transplant doctor and amidst others. So he has really led that effort. We are about to hire a new organ transplant lead. She is a registered nurse and should be joining us shortly. I believe likely in August.
I'm glad to hear that. I know that diabetes and dialysis, is running rampant here in our community. So it's really good to know that you're focused on that. Does the Department of Human Services believe that family engagement with the YRC, I'm talking about YRC now, helps inmates in their rehabilitation efforts?
So first and foremost, they're not called inmates, they're called residents because they're minors. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. And so I think family engagement, no matter what aspect of when we're working with minors, family engagement is crucial to their success. That includes our residents at YRC as well.
Thank you for the correction, Commissioner. Has there been any thoughts to having a YRC program here on St. Thomas, just to allow the St. Thomas-based residents to have the opportunity to have regular visits from their families? Because I know it's a hardship to, get on the seaplane and travel to St. Croix, to visit residents who may be, housed at YRC on St. Croix. Is there or has there been any serious consideration given towards developing a facility here on St. Thomas?
In my opinion, currently we have 7 as a census, so 5 male, 2 female. So to have an additional cost associated with a 24-hour facility in St. Thomas, I don't believe is cost effective for our territory. So at this stage of the game, I would say no to having an additional one in St. Thomas. The family contact is important, and I do understand that can be because of the water situation and having to fly and or take the boat to visit your youth or your minor. I do understand that, and so we'll do our best to be able to, whatever the court order states, that we'll be able to do our best to ensure that that's completed. But I don't believe it's cost effective to have 2 detention facilities in our territory. We're just too small at this stage of the game.
2 minutes.
Okay. I understand from a dollars and cents perspective, what I know just from the perspective of families with your loved one over on St. Croix, cost being a challenge for families, having to fly over to St. Croix, it is a significant hardship on the families. So I know that hopefully there's some balance between just efficiency from a government standpoint and us, looking at the situation as young people who are, like you said, not inmates, but residents who are receiving treatment and having access and regular access to the family, I think goes a long way towards their efforts to turn the corner. But I'll shift from that a little bit now. Commissioner, is the increase, and I apologize if it was mentioned before, Are the increases for the steelworkers supervisors included in the FY 2022 budget?
I'll have to, DC Rojas, or CFO, DC Rojas. I'm gonna pass that one.
Hi, DC Rojas. Thank you, Senator Potter.
Try again. DC Rojas, can you
Sorry,
answer
we're just
again?
trying to make no, please, no. Okay, can you hear me well?
No, yes.
I'm hearing an echo on my end, DC.
Okay. Senator Potter, I'll have to check and confirm because I'm not aware of a outstanding USW supervisor increase. But I will have to get back to you on that. The increases that I know are outstanding are for the SIU masters and the LESU correction officers, and those are being worked on. But I'll have to double check on the USW supervisors. I'm not aware that there's an increase outstanding for them.
Time.
Thank you for that. And just one final question, Mr. Chair, if I may.
You may conclude.
Commissioner, on page 31 of the post-audit report, there is there's an indication that there's $66 million remaining with regards to the medical assistant program. I know the department, in your testimony, you mentioned that the department received $126 million and you expended $60 million. Are we at risk of losing this $66 million come the end of September of this year?
Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner with Oversight of Medicaid. The Medicaid is a one-year program, and we spend our federal amount, but it must be matched. Last year, we spent about $100 million of the $126 million. So after September 30th, we do lose that particular federal year, and it goes to a new award. We are hoping that our Congress will continue the enhanced funding for Medicaid in 2022.
Okay, thank you very much. And one final question, I promise. I apologize, Mr. Chair. What is the status of the Virgin Islands benefits eligibility system? Is MAP, MAP still the only program currently using VIBES?
I knew you were going to ask that question today, so.
Yes, Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner. Yes, CFO mentioned we asked for some additional monies. You know, as we were talking, Senator Fred Gregory asked about the additional other services monies. So we do need the additional monies to finish the VIBE system so we can include SNAP, TANF, LIHEAP, childcare.
Okay. Thank you very much for your responses. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the extra time.
Thank you, Senator Potter. Senator Fred Gregory, you had a point of inquiry?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Very quickly, what's the difference between the social worker and the family support specialist positions?
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin. The difference between the social worker position and the family services specialist position is in order to practice social work in the Virgin Islands, you need a social work license. So the social workers are licensed as well as they have investigative responsibilities. The family services specialists do not.
What do they do?
They do everything else. They do home visits, they coordinate services, they generate court reports and petitions, they testify in court. But if it's a matter of an investigation of child maltreatment, that would be assigned to a social worker.
So they are not, because I asked a question to follow up on the question that my millennial colleague from St. Croix was asking. So they are not providing any social worker services in this territory.
They're providing social work services, but they are not across the nation. That's what.
That's why I'm asking you, don't tell me about across the nation. Let's talk about what happened in the Virgin Islands and what's legal. Are they providing social worker services in the territory? Because I know why y'all moved to this family service specialist, because they were unable to pass the social worker certification program, right? So I need to understand if they are providing social worker services, because the courts are complaining about it.
They're not providing social worker services because they're not social workers. They're providing social services to families. So are caseworkers.
So Human Services ain't gonna find itself in a lawsuit down the road. Commissioner?
Human Services is more likely to find themselves in a lawsuit for having people called social workers practicing who don't have social work licenses.
Commissioner? Right, and that's where I'm going. Family service support specialists practicing as social workers, but they don't have social worker licenses.
No,
So that's a question. Commissioner,
The
I need you to
delineation of
respond to
duties
this.
is across the board and across the nation, the delineation of duties looks similar. So I could have deleted all of my social work positions and only had family services specialists. It depends on the state or the territory what you call them. Because social workers did not have the licenses, I'm a licensed social worker, just so you know. I'm a licensed social worker, I've kept my license. So because of that, to have them go to court and be called a social worker without the license would have put us more at risk than to
Are they
have
providing social worker services? That's what I'm asking. Is a yes
caseworkers.
or a no?
They are, I would call them social services type of work. As some of our LPNs, CNAs, RNs, are the LPNs providing a type of nursing service? Yes, but there's a line of what they can and can't do. It's the same
I asked
thing.
you a direct question. You tell me what LPN and I cannot think.
I'm telling you right now, for the social work service part of it, there may be duties that look like social work, but they're also called social services specialists or a skilled nurse, or a different type of title. I'm more at risk to having a social worker called a social worker with a non-license in the courtroom than not.
You're also at risk with having a family service support specialist providing social worker services, and they're not licensed.
That's
Mr.
not
Chair,
true because
thank you
they're
for
not.
the time.
May I?
Yes.
The social services specialist is not required to be licensed. The social worker is.
Right, but the family service support specialist, when this position came about, how long have we had this particular position?
Okay, so may I? So when we came on board, we had social workers that were not licensed. I gave them 15 months to get their licenses. When they did not or could not get their licenses, we did a change in title to many of them.
A change in title?
From social worker to family support specialist.
A change in title and a change in salary? Or
No.
just change in title?
Change in
If
title.
I may,
No, Assistant Commissioner Carla Bench, I don't know if that was DC Rojas. A full job description, there is a change in salary that's commensurate with that change in position. And I have to say, across the nation, because I've
Okay,
worked...
no, I understand across. Let me just be direct. It's a direct result of those individuals that did not become certified, correct?
Correct.
So
That would have put us in a
if I am a
deficit.
social worker and I became certified, I did what I have to do, and somebody didn't even try, are the salaries the same? Because it was the same before.
We recommended that the salaries not be the same.
But recommend and is two different things. So if both of us are social workers, you gave us X amount of time to be able
Correct.
to become licensed. The 15-month passed. This pool of employees did not become licensed. This pool became licensed. The two pools can still receive the same salary.
Agreed.
But Senator, if they are still being paid the same salary, that is not a function of the change, that is a function of how slowly the GVI processes work. And I believe that that's what DC Rojas was speaking to.
Okay, so a submission have been made that those who are licensed social workers are making more than the family service support specialists. The only thing about this, and I know that it's going to, 1 minute, I'll let you speak. The only thing about this is that individuals were hired in a social worker position that were supposed to meet certain qualifications.
Correct.
You know, and it's important for us to make sure that they meet certain qualifications, because what's really going on, I mean, we might change the terminology here or there, but the family service support specialists acting as if they're social workers. And that's the reality that's happening out there, because they're still saying that they are social workers.
They can't be called,
They can't, but they're acting as if they are. They haven't changed the scope, responsibility, or what they're doing. So they're still performing the same duties that they were performing when they were a social worker.
So the alternative to that would have been?
That you must pay those individuals who are social workers who got the license. They got to be paid more than somebody who refused to get the license. And we have to encourage all of the family service support specialists that they need to be licensed, because we can't water it down and name it something else.
Assistant Commissioner Benjamin, it's not family services support specialist.
What's the
It's
name?
family services specialist.
Okay, family services
And
specialist.
they
That's what
are
it's about.
it is a professional position. It was vetted to the Department of the Division of Personnel. It is already categorized in terms of where it would fall if it were in the union and all that kind of stuff. It is not anything that the Department of Human Services came up with. The issue of social worker licensure was an issue across government. It was not a Department of Human Services specific problem. And the family services specialist title, Google it. Child protective services work is what they do.
I could Google it, but this was our way of dealing with individuals who fail to adhere to the policies of the department.
Being approximately between 250 and 300 people short-staffed from 10 years ago, the alternative would have been to terminate them because they didn't meet the qualifications of their duties.
How many family service specialists we have?
Deputy Commissioner Rhoda Rojas, there are, in the reclassification of the social workers who did not meet having their license, there's a total of 9 that are being reclassified to family services specialists. And to what, as AC Reimer Brown, Carla Benjamin said, I apologize. This was a process that we did with Division of Personnel. Their grade and their pay and their status in the union has changed. Because of the internal process, it has not been fully completed, but it will be shortly because we just got everything we needed to push that forward. But this is not just a title change. There is duties that changed so that this is not a social worker role. It is a family services specialist position. Additionally, as part of the social work change, we used to have a social worker 1, 2, and 3. As part of the reclassification, the social worker collapsed into just a social worker. There's no longer a 1, 2, or 3.
How many social workers do we have?
And that is the reclassification process. I'm sorry.
How many social workers do we have?
We have today, as a social worker with license, there are 17.
And moving forward, are you going to be, what are we going to be hiring? Both or one?
Yes. Deputy Commissioner Rojas, I apologize. Senator Viale, yes. Our goal in our critical hires is to hire social workers. And if we have a backfill position, because we did have someone resign who was a social worker and did not have their license, that position currently would be used as a family services specialist position.
What's the qualification for a family service specialist position? What's the qualification?
A bachelor's.
If you give me a minute, I don't have it in front of me, but I can pull that up. And this is Deputy Commissioner Rojas. I apologize.
We can send you both job specs if you like.
Assistant Commissioner Benjamin, I wanted to add one other thing. There is a unit,
Your name again?
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin. The Office of Intake and Emergency Services is the primary unit that does investigations. And their unit is fully staffed with social workers. There's one family services specialist in the Office of Intake and Emergency Services. And what they deal with is not investigations. It's the referrals that come in that are for behavioral issues, and those issues not including investigations.
Point of inquiry, Senator Sorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just along the line of, things that deal with our young people, are you a stakeholder in the Seaview Adolescent Unit?
A stakeholder?
Okay.
Like, do you have any, like?
It's called, so Seaview and
I said stakeholder, but correct me.
So Seaview is the business that was CMS certified. That's no longer a business. We have St. Thomas Healthcare, which is the adolescent portion currently.
So the name changed and?
They had two businesses. One was Seaview and one was St. Thomas Healthcare. We contract with St. Thomas Healthcare.
That's with the adolescent unit?
Correct.
So what does that funding look like for those adolescents that are stationed or that are living in the
That are
adolescent
living there. So
unit?
St. Thomas Healthcare also requested a rate increase, and that's listed in our contract list, and I could just take a quick look.
Okay. Because recently, and the PPEs and everything, do you provide that, or that would be the?
That should be under their budget. If they needed an additional,
So the question I'm asking is, they had an outbreak recently, as you know, I'm sure you know, and some things are happening over there. Who's the checker of the checker? So they have a contract with you?
Correct.
So who's ensuring that that adolescent unit is top priority in that area? Who's over that?
we have Assistant Commissioner.
Oh, that's you, Ms. Ben. Okay, sorry. Assistant Commissioner Benjamin, talk to me. Go ahead.
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin. So we have two contracts with St. Thomas Healthcare Management, one for the adolescent residential unit and one for the day treatment. The administrator for Office of Residential and Interstate Compact Affairs, Ms. Evie Monique James, that administrator has oversight of all residential facilities. So she would be responsible, one of the persons responsible for ensuring the safety of the children. However, the individual administrators, so the administrator for foster care, that's a potential placement. That administrator and the assigned worker would check in as well. If it happened to be someone from our intervention and prevention services unit, if they had a child who was there, they would also check. So it's sort of a dual responsibility.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Senators, before we continue with the point of inquiries, I just saw our next senator join us, Senator Alma Francis Heiliger. So, CFO, go ahead. I'll come over to you right now. Go ahead and respond.
Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. I just wanted to respond to Senator DeGraff's question about the fund balances. I have requested the latest deposits into those accounts, but I can give him the current balance. As of right now, for crisis, it was $1,434,415.65. For the homes for the aged, I currently have it listed as $436,494.90. And for the senior center, I have listed at $864,704.20.
Okay, thank you so much. 436 for the home for the aged. Do they have access to those funds? And we have sufficient supplies and everything in Herbert Grigg and also Queen Louise? Do they have sufficient supplies?
We always work collaboratively with the programs to ensure that they have sufficient supplies, and yes, they have access to utilization of the funds for various payments. Yes.
Is it easy access or it's a convoluted process?
It's easy access.
Senator Francis Heiliger? And we need to look at the supplies because I have visited.
They need more supplies.
Yeah, they just, I mean, if you have depends, they go through that so quickly. So we need to maybe come up with an estimate as to how much they need every single week, every month, because at times they do run out and they are in need of supplies, and then for St. Croix, you got to go through St. Thomas, correct? Because they no longer can draw the funds here.
Correct.
So you got to go through a process of you contact who in St. Thomas?
The fiscal office.
Okay.
They work through the
You're
fiscal
talking about the
office.
vendor, or are you talking
Or the
about?
vendor. We have
But
various
they-
vendor contracts.
How does it go? They need supplies, they contact you first?
Not necessarily. If they have the funding available, they'll go ahead and enter the requisitions. Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. They'll go ahead and enter the requisitions and coordinate once the requisition is converted to a PO. They'll coordinate with the vendor the drop-off of the supplies.
Okay.
If the vendor doesn't have the supplies, then they'll call around to see where the supplies are available, and then we go from there. Maybe a vendor may have the supplies and not accept the government PO, and then we have to coordinate.
Okay,
trying to get
so
funds
just do
to
me
them.
a favor and make sure that Herbert Grigg has sufficient supplies, because I know that they have been missing some stuff. Senator Francis Ilaga.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, people of the territory. Good afternoon to the testifiers. I would also make note for the record, I have been here for hours. I did not just arrive. I want to go ahead and ask a couple of questions, and I want to say thank you first off to the Human Services Department, because as a resident and now a senator who is consistently inundated with phone calls on behalf of the constituents, one of the top agencies we get calls about is Human Services. And one of the things I want to ask you directly has to do, when you spoke earlier about short staff in regards to individuals in delivering food. How do you handle that? And how do you intend to fix that short staff issue? Because as a senator, when I'm getting a call and I have a senior citizen crying, saying they had not gotten food for days, and my staff have to get up and leave to go try to contact the company to figure out why that person hadn't gotten food, that's a major problem for me as their representative. And when I'm listening to you today say that there's some issues at times because it's short staff and you make adjustments for giving food multiples on certain days, explain to me and how do we intend to tackle that? Because anyone not getting food, especially seniors, is a concern for me. Thank you.
Yes, Mikal Reimer Brown, Assistant Commissioner, and I'm glad for that question, Senator, and I'm very happy to report that we've been given additional federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan to continue extending some services to those able-bodied seniors who have added to our list of seniors. We have increased in the last year about 43% in serving our seniors throughout this community. And in order to tackle the drivers and the delivery persons, we are going to be hiring temporary staff. We just received a grant that will take us up into fiscal year 2024. The pandemic is upon us, and we are doing our very best to extend ourselves, but good news, we are getting additional funding, and with that, we'll be hiring temporary employees to bridge the gap.
And based on how much these grants are, do you have an estimate of the additional persons that will be hired to assist our senior population with food?
I would say, and I'm working with my senior managers of the senior citizen staff next week, but at least I would believe 3 in each district, additional staff with these funding will be go a long way in helping to bridge the gap.
It'll go a long way. And how sufficient do you believe 3 in each district would be able to bridge this gap? Or do you believe that getting additional monies in the budget could assist with this?
Well, right now, I believe with the federal funding, we're not only going to be hiring staff, we're going to be paying for food as well. So at this point, I believe we have sufficient funding for the Meals on Wheels program, and with the additional federal, we should be able to bridge the gap. And I believe that our seniors will be served.
How much is the grant?
The additional grant is about $1.6, $1.7 million. And that will be added to our other federal grant that comes every year.
And out of that, for the additional, you're saying 6 people are going to be hired for each district and the rest is going to be utilized on food?
Yes.
Or are you going to?
Yes, we have
Okay.
to purchase the food because we do have a waiting list. When we get the additional staff on St. Croix, we'll be able to reduce that waiting list. And so with more people comes more monies to pay the vendors.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about employee morale as well as, you know, we're dealing with COVID-19 and a lot of services that human services provides at the end of the day or outside of that or even everyday child abuse, dealing with family issues. How has this impacted on a continuous basis the regular services of dealing with human services compounded with now dealing with situations of COVID-19? How is this affecting the employees? And what are your thoughts in regards to the output and the quality of work currently?
So thank you for the question. I think that being severely understaffed and a lot of our employees have multiple roles, it's exhausting. Just doing the initial job duties and then anything added to COVID, the pandemic. So you have your PPEs, you're serving additional populations, you're adding your PEBT across the board, your waivers, your flexibilities, every way, the teleworking, having to get additional supplies in order for people to be able to work from home sometimes. So all of that compounded, plus maybe those individuals that have had childcare or children not being able to go to school and trying to balance it all, it's a lot for our employees across the board, not just within human services, but I'm going to specifically talk about ours. It's a lot, and I think that we're at a place now where people are exhausted. They're on the verge of burnout, in all honesty.
Okay, well, I'm trying to figure out how we can assist with that because human services is critical to this territory. So I'm asking you, how are you as an agency tackling that to assist the employees, as well as how could we as a body assist you in making sure that they get the help that they need so they could provide the services they need?
Well,
2 minutes.
Staff up is one of them. So if I'm able to adequately have a workforce that is even keel across all divisions, then it allows for those that to have a little bit of a break and just do the role that they're supposed to be doing versus in addition to others. I think we do need to do some more mental health or some more professional development or resiliency training. I think that is a weak area, but again, my HR office is very limited. So we're going to try to get our employee relations board back up and running, and I think that employee relations will help build morale back up. So it'll be management and employees together coming to making suggestions that would be in the benefit of human services.
Good. As it relates, as I was sitting here for the past couple of hours and I was listening to the testimony and my colleagues' dialogue, and there were several discussions about cost overruns as well as areas where you might have gone over. And there was also discussion about managing these things a little bit better. And technology-wise, with the things that you plan on bringing on, do you think that this is sufficient in order to help curtail some of the potential issues within your agency as it relates to mistakes happening? For example, I got a report of, I don't even know if it was previously discussed, of a overpayment to Cigna for some over $7 million. And I need to know if something like that did happen and if it was accurate, and what has been put in place to assist with correcting issues such as that.
We're going to clarify that statement because that was incorrect, but go ahead and clarify the Cigna statement again for me, please.
Yeah. Charmaine Modeste Antoine, CFO. I do believe, if my recollection serves me correctly, back in 2019, around the time where the contract for the Cigna provider expired, we were transitioning in. It happened around May or June of 2019. And there were, the contract had expired, and there were some meetings I sat in on with Cigna where we would strategize about funding the account. And as we would move to execute the new contract. And so I was included in the distribution list of the funding notifications. We received the funding notifications. We funded the account. It is a Citibank account where we are responsible for placing funds, and the claims are paid from that account. So it's not overpayment to Cigna. It's funding that's sitting in an account, and once claims are applied to the account, it reduces the amount. And so the funding notices were received, payments were made into the account based on the funding notices, and then the account was funded by,
So
it was overfunded by a
I
certain
just
amount.
need clarity.
Time.
I just need clarity for understanding. So basically, from your perspective, monies was put in there. Was that monies necessary at the time, or it was put in there and once realized it's now monies that is there that they're deducting out of? What is the normal procedure for paying claims in regards to that and this account?
Charmaine Modeste Antoine, the CFO. The account is funded so that the claims payment can be posted towards that account. Back in 2019, early 2019, when the contract was expiring, we were receiving the funding notices and payments were being submitted based on the funding notices. When it came to the fourth quarter in around August, and we were doing our reporting and assessing of the accounts, the claims against that account was not sufficient the balance in the account was at $5 million or so. And so we didn't want to, because the Medicaid program is a cash basis program, we did not want to cross over fiscal years having the account funded at a higher level than it was necessary for the claims, to address the claims. And so we did request a refund to CMS. And we did request a refund, and that was processed.
How much was the amount of the refund that you got back?
I can provide that information to you, but it's somewhere around 5.8 million, and I'm just going from memory.
Okay. Thank you. Now I get what was happening. So we overpaid and you got it back. Yes. Okay. So,
Senator,
Mr. Chair, could I ask my final question?
I was just going to say you may conclude.
Excuse me? I didn't hear what you said, sir.
You may go ahead and conclude. Go ahead and ask your final question.
I appreciate it. I wanted to, earlier when we were talking, could you just share with me a little bit as it relates specifically to child abuse in the territory? Because I want to make sure that any aspect of that is funded in a way that the children in our territory are taken care of. Have you seen an influx or a rise when it comes to child abuse in the territory? What has Human Services been doing in regards to that? Do you need additional funding specifically for that, not only to help with the abuse victims or either family or abusers, et cetera? Please, can you expound a little bit on that? Because this is very important to me as it relates to our children in the territory.
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin. The child abuse numbers continue to be depressed since the start of the COVID pandemic. And one of the reasons why that is because of lack of contact. During the time when everyone was pretty much quarantined, there was no one laying eyes on children outside of their homes, which is where most of the reports come from. So because children were not going to school and they were not out there and people weren't able to see them, the numbers slumped significantly. The numbers have increased as expected now that people are having access to children, but there hasn't been a dramatic increase to suggest that that child abuse levels are exceeding where we were prior to shutdown.
And have you done, okay, that was my final question. To wrap up, I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to ask the questions, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the additional time.
Thank you, Senator Francis Ilaga. Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin, again, I've been wanting to add, Senator Potter asked about the family contact situation with the YRC, and I wanted to add that as a result of the pandemic environment and the fact that we've had to go virtual, the YRC staff, including correction officers and treatment, have made great efforts to make contact with family virtually, and that has turned out to be a bit of a blessing because family contact has actually increased. Our Christmas party, for example, was a Teams meeting, and the attendance by family members was more than we've ever seen. So they've been doing a yeoman's job on that, and I wanted to mention that and give them kudos for that.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I saw that some of your residents from YRC and your residents in the group home took part in the About Face, the summer program. Two individuals. I had a chance to speak to both of those individuals, so I'm happy to see that they were there. Okay, we had a couple points, and then we're going to let you guys put a closing statement and wrap up. So just 1 point. 1 point. Let me take off the S. 1 point. Senator James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the 1 point. Along the same line of questioning regarding child abuse, I just need to know two things. How many employees within the Department of Human Services serves on the Child Abuse Task Force? And what is the role of the Child Abuse Task Force in those 226 open investigations? How they go about making those determinations and finding?
Assistant Commissioner Carla Benjamin, the St. Croix Child Abuse Task Force is actually an interagency task force. I know that Administrator Natalie Lewis from the Office of Intake and Emergency Services participates in that regularly. Individuals from other units are free to participate if they want to, but the administrator for intake, we have representatives from the police department, from the Women's Coalition. There have been times when we've had representation from physicians, the Department of Justice. What was the other part of the question?
And what role does the Child Abuse Task Force plays in these investigations? 'Cause I know that Attorney General serves on the Child Abuse Task Force as well, so I was trying to find out what is actually going on there in the Child Abuse Task Force, because I learned about it recently. I need to try and find out more about what role they play in these investigations.
I mean, historically, we've come together, like I said, it's a multidisciplinary team. So we've come together and we've talked about cases and ways that we can address the investigations. In the past, we've actually arranged to have interviews, because research shows that every time a child or a victim has to recall or recount what happened to them, it's traumatic, and you don't want to re-traumatize them. In the past, we've actually arranged for individuals from the appropriate agencies to be there at the same time, have one person interview, and everyone can get the answers at that time. I know we've sort of moved away from that, but the Child Abuse Task Force is sort of like a think tank for all of the individuals who are going to be involved in any investigation of child abuse and neglect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time, and I will be reaching out to you regarding about the Child Abuse Task Force. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator James. Senator Francis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And my 1 point and 2 parts is in regards to your maintenance staff. And when I look at the listing that has been provided by the post audit, is woefully deficient. Can you speak to what the maintenance staff census may be, as well as what are you doing in terms of vacancy wise to staff up that area of your workforce?
Sure. I have Deputy Commissioner Miguel Tricoci just came on board. He's doing some great work as far as reassessing the needs. I know we have a couple of contracts, landscaping contracts that help out with, that frees up our maintenance, but I'll allow him to speak on his staff. DC Tricoci.
Thank you, Commissioner. Deputy Commissioner Miguel Tricoci. Senator, we recognize that we do have a shortage of staff, and we've done a evaluation of our needs, both territory-wise, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and we're in the process of trying to fulfill those positions and get those positions posted because they're absolutely needed, and we need to get that shored up so we can manage all the properties that we have. So we recognize that as a deficiency, but something that we're working very hard to fill and make a strength in the future.
Okay, thank you so much. Senator Francis Heilager, you have a final question?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm listening.
Okay, thank you so much. Commissioner, we're going to allow you to put a closing statement on the record. I think we have exhausted all our questions for today.
Again, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here today. The Department of Human Services does quite a lot. We know it's a lot. We know that we still have a lot more to do. I know for a fact that our staff does everything that they can to ensure the best of their ability with what the resources that they do have. But I want to say thank you to them publicly, because I know that they go above and beyond on a regular basis. They put themselves at risk, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm very appreciative of that. I look forward to the 2022. I think it's a breath of fresh air to get an additional amount of funding, because I know that the staffing for us will be amazing, and it'll help us do what we do best, and that is serving the public. So again, I look forward to being in front of you again at any given time, and I'm free to answer any questions in between. So thank you so much for allowing us to be here today.
And thank you so much, Commissioner. I just wanted to encourage you to reach out as much as possible to the staff. A lot of them are very frustrated. We need to try to deal with some of the low-hanging fruits that are going to be able to build back that morale, the acting positions, some of the supplies, the conditions. So as much of the low-hanging fruits as possible that we can be able to come up with some solutions, I think it would definitely increase morale. Your department is very important to the people of the Virgin Islands, so we must make sure that human services is taken care of. The Committee of Finance will take a 5-minute recess.